The story kicks off on a super gloomy battlefield, where some memories just refuse to fade even after 10 years, specifically the moment he first set foot there at 25 years old. Right in his very first battle, he faced that terrifying, unprecedented moment where a soldier is forced to take someone's life. At this point, the landscape around him is completely littered with fallen bodies, proving the harsh reality of a guy who has already taken down over 2,000 foes. During the fight, the crimson mess sprays non-stop, staining both the white snow and the heavy metal of his armor. Finally, the soldier collapses to his knees right in the middle of the carnage, completely drained and running on empty. Suddenly, though, the whole vibe shifts to the bright and peaceful inside of an office building. Inside, young Damien gets the news that the fat inheritance left by his late parents is going to be managed by his very own uncle. The guy in the suit spreads the paperwork across the desk and tells the kid to sign the dotted line right away. Backing up the suit's words, the uncle breathes down his nephew's neck, rushing him to get it done. The shady relative complains about how slow he's being, warning him that staring at the papers won't do anything, and orders him to just sign it so they can wrap this up. Trying to sound like a good guy, the man promises he'll manage everything and hand over the full amount the second the kid hits legal age. But the kid just rips the papers right in front of their faces, remembering that this was the exact moment his life got completely flushed down the drain. Without skipping a beat, he shreds the documents and flat-out states that he'll only accept the inheritance if it's deposited into an imperial bank account strictly under his own name. Completely mind-blown by this rebellious attitude, the uncle jumps up from his chair. Tossing the torn pieces of paper into the air, Damien demands a very specific clause that blocks anyone else from withdrawing a single dime from that account. Standing his ground against the adults, the kid keeps a dead serious, rock-solid expression. Seeing this, the relative completely loses his cool and clenches his fists super tight. Losing his marbles, the guy grabs his nephew by the collar and yells furiously that the only thing he had to do was sign that useless piece of paper. Instead of being scared, the kid grabs his attacker's arm, realizing that this violent reaction was exactly what he saw coming. Taking advantage of the close range, our MC delivers a clean, solid punch straight to his uncle's face, shutting him up instantly. Thanks to the force of the hit, the man is sent flying over the desk, while the kid sarcastically thanks him for still being the same useless jerk as always. Right after that, he turns his attention to the suit guy, demanding that the paperwork be redone immediately. Shaking like a leaf, the employee rushes to confirm that the special clause can be added right that second. The thing is, in his original timeline, he was only 13 years old and ended up doing absolutely nothing against that scam. But now the game has changed, since he regressed to the past fully equipped with the mindset and experience of a grown veteran. The story jumps back to the dark, current situation in the freezing ravine lit only by the moonlight. The dragging footsteps on the ruined ground show the absolute exhaustion of the soldier, who curses this desolate wasteland. He gasps for air inside his metal suit, remembering how he warned everyone that this mission was pure insanity. Centurion Damien asks himself how on earth a tiny squad of 100 men was supposed to wipe out a force of over 2,000 enemies. Out of breath, the young guy realizes the massive toll the battle is taking on his body. While exhaustion blurs his vision, a crimson trail runs down his beaten face. In his tired mind, the image of a fallen comrade who didn't make it through the clash flashes before him. Quietly, he asks for forgiveness, admitting that the price they paid was way too steep, even though they technically won. The soldier drops to his knees on the freezing dirt, feeling guilty that if he had just been stronger, he could have saved his buddies from that tragedy. Swallowed by disappointment, he crushes a rock in his bare hands and curses his own lack of power. Pain takes over his entire body and he grunts, trying to stay awake no matter what. Unable to stand, the kid is pretty much certain that his time is up. Out of nowhere, a mysterious glowing artifact crashes onto the rocky ground right next to him. Feeling the end getting closer, the Centurion's head is flooded with thoughts about all the choices he made in his military career. Staring up at the night sky, he thinks about how different things would have been if he had just joined the army before turning 25. Clinging to one last sliver of hope, he begs in his mind for just one more chance to start his life over. In a heroic daydream, our MC pictures himself leading his battalion with honor and winning the war alongside his crew. However, that illusion shatters real quick when he coughs up a massive amount of red into the darkness. Completely drained of strength, his body falls backward onto the ground, fully convinced that this is his final game over. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a hand grabbing a mattress, proving that he just woke up directly in his own past. Young Damien leaps out of bed, trying to wrap his head around how he somehow traveled exactly 17 years back in time. He stares at his own tiny hands, totally bewildered by how insane this whole situation is. With that, the kid places a hand on his stomach to check his mana core, the absolute must-have element for any soldier in this universe. Shockingly, the core is completely intact and flawless, giving him the golden opportunity to learn how to master energy in this new life. The vibe gets tense when he remembers that, in his previous run, he got robbed by his uncle and tossed onto the streets to do dirty work. Living as a stray orphan with zero future, he ended up taking the fall for a gang leader's crimes and got locked up by the cops. With zero options left, the kid was dragged straight from a prison cell to the front lines, fully believing he'd meet his maker there. Despite his miserable track record, he remembers the exact moment an officer stood before him and offered him a real, genuine chance. Leaning back on his pillow, the kid chuckles, thinking about how a total loser managed to climb the ranks all the way to Centurion. Closing his eyes peacefully, he makes peace with the fact that all his hardcore dedication to the military eventually led to his own demise. But the sound of creaking wood triggers the kid's combat instincts, and his eyes snap open when he realizes his room is being broken into. Cool as a cucumber, the young guy sits on the edge of the bed without making a single peep. In a flash, his hand reaches under the furniture and grabs a hidden dagger he had stashed there. Outside the door, the masked intruder slowly turns the knob, trying his best not to make a sound in the middle of the night. The door swings open, revealing the dark hallway as the threat sneaks into the bedroom. Catching the assassin totally off guard, Damien drops straight from the ceiling, delivering a brutal downward strike. The blade slices the attacker, who groans in pure agony from the heavy hit. The intruder stumbles backward screaming, while the kid casually complains that the blade didn't sink all the way in. Foaming at the mouth with rage, the guy raises his own weapon, swearing he'll end the kid right then and there. The dude swings wildly with a horizontal slash, but fails miserably to hit his target. He keeps the pressure on and lunges forward, trying everything in his power to chop the kid up. Taking advantage of the sloppy form, our hero simply dodges and grabs the attacker's extended arm. In a split second, the ex-centurion sinks his dagger straight into the guy's side, securing a fatal blow. With crimson dripping from his knife in the dark, the kid demands to know exactly who ordered the hit. Dropped on the bedroom floor, the hired goons twist and groan from how bad their injuries are. Losing his patience, our MC violently drags one of the guys across the floor by his hood. He puts the blade right in the dude's face and asks, with ice in his veins, if a guy named Pucker was the one holding the purse strings. To force the truth out, the kid drives the knife right through the criminal's hand, screaming the same question. Suddenly, a sarcastic voice chimes in, saying he's pretty scary for his age, which makes the kid shoot a glaring, red-eyed look over his shoulder. The newcomer jumps back when Damien drops his name, Mookman, totally confused as to how this kid knew him before he even introduced himself. Our hero easily figures out that Mookman being in this room has a very obvious purpose. With quick reflexes, the kid yanks the knife out of the floor guy's face. His brain working in overdrive, he pieces the puzzle together and figures out exactly what's going down. The ex-centurion remembers that in the original timeline, 17 years ago, things played out very differently. Back then, he got caught super easily while running through the alleys, something he always thought was sketchy. Right then, the sound of heavy footsteps grabs his attention in the middle of the dark room. Staring into the shadows, Damien realizes this trap was never just a random piece of bad luck in his life. It becomes crystal clear that his Uncle Pucker had already set up this elaborate, behind-the-scenes deal to sell out his own nephew. Fueled by the rage of his family's betrayal, the kid grips his messy weapon super tight. The room fills with heavy tension as he squares up to face the new threat at the door. Boiling with anger, our MC realizes that Dirtbag really did throw him to the wolves. On the other side, the newcomer looks at his prey with total confidence, ready to wrap up the job. Cutting to the chase, the assassin charges at the victim, holding his knife high to slice him in half. Using the wide-open gap, the kid simply ducks and lets the side-swing breeze right over his head. The intruder freaks out, realizing he just missed an attack that should have been a total piece of cake. Without a scratch on him, Damien casually asks himself if this thug was always such a pushover. He dodges a rapid-fire flurry of sword strikes like it's a video game, flexing his true hidden skills. While the criminal screams in frustration, the ex-centurion thinks back to the thousands of times he nearly bit the dust on the battlefield. Thanks to that insane experience, the kid learned how to perfectly read his opponent's footwork and eye movements. Plus, just the tilt of a hip or a shoulder twitch gives away any enemy's next move. So it's child's play for our hero to predict exactly where every lethal swing is going to land. With that, the mercenary is completely consumed by frustration and curses up a storm, seeing his attacks fail miserably. The attacker insults the kid, calling him a rat, and tries another furious lunge, which ends in absolute disaster. With a lightning-fast block, the kid uses his short blade to parry the sword strike straight up into the air. The force of the block knocks the sword right out of the intruder's hands, sending it spinning across the dark room. Seizing the opening, the tables turn completely the second the criminal is left unarmed in front of his target. Realizing he's in deep trouble, the guy panics and starts sputtering insults non-stop. Completely cornered and shaking with fear, the big guy loses his balance and falls flat on his behind. Staring at his empty hand, the dude refuses to believe he just got outsped by a random kid. Not giving him a second to breathe, the kid lunges forward and presses the dagger right against his opponent's neck. Trembling on the floor, the criminal thinks in pure terror that the monster standing over him is only 13 years old. Looking at his target with absolute disgust, Damien sarcastically asks if he wants to know his secret technique. The kid casually explains that he can predict everything just by watching exactly how the opponent lifts their arm. The mercenary's face is dripping in cold sweat, and he thinks this whole explanation sounds completely unhinged. Crouching down to get face to face, the kid warns that he doesn't give a crap if the prisoner believes him or not. Trying to buy some time, the attacker bluffs, claiming his buddies will come avenge him the second they find out he's caught. But the ex-centurion just presses the blade harder against the guy's face and promises he's never leaving this room to tell anyone. Cutting the small talk, the kid switches gears and demands to know right now if Uncle Pucker ordered the hit. Shocked by the surreal intimidation, the criminal gulps hard and decides to keep his mouth shut. Noticing the silence, our MC promises to leave him with a permanent limp if he doesn't start talking fast. The mental torture totally shatters whatever tiny bit of bravery the guy had left, throwing him into pure panic mode. From the terrified assassin's point of view, there is no way a normal kid could have a stare that deadly. Completely broken, he finally drops his loyalty and stutters out that Pucker wanted him brought in alive. Getting exactly what he wanted, the kid announces the interrogation is over, leaving the prisoner super confused. A second later, the fighter starts shaking in absolute terror when he realizes his own tragic fate was sealed right then and there. Keeping his brutal promise, the MC takes out the thug without feeling an ounce of guilt. While wiping the mess off in the dark room, the boy tells himself that tying up all loose ends was absolutely necessary. Turning his back on the bodies, he points out that the biggest lesson he learned as an adult is not to make enemies for no reason. Walking away from the fight scene, the ex-soldier admits that this rule goes out the window if someone tries a cowardly sneak attack. Faced with an extreme threat like that, the only logical option left is to crush the danger with absolute brutality. Far away from that bloodbath, the story shifts to the massive mansion of the guy who ordered the hit. Inside his fancy office, the boss of the thugs checks his pocket watch, guessing the job should be done by now. Leaning against the furniture, he assures the old man that his boys will be back any minute with the kid in tow. With a nasty tone, the masked guy points out how mad the dude must be to drop serious cash on such low-level targets. That comment sparks the shady relative's rage all over again, and he slams the desk, remembering the humiliation he took at the office. The mercenary tells his unhinged client to chill out and makes it clear he won't take a pay cut just because his team is running a little late. Right then, the stressful vibe is broken by the solid sound of knocking on the heavy office doors. Recognizing the secret knock, the assassin pulls out his blade and announces that the hallway mission is officially wrapped up. Completely blinded by rage, Pucker promises he'll snap the kid in half the second he signs over the inheritance. When he opens the doors, the mercenary gets super confused seeing his own goon propped up there like a statue. Acting on pure instinct, the masked guy shoves the unconscious body of his buddy, who immediately hits the floor. Staring into the pitch-black hallway, the bodyguard instantly realizes his crew completely blew the job. And with that, our MC steps right out of the shadows, walking with serious purpose and holding a massive spear. The assassin freezes for a few seconds, trying to wrap his brain around how a kid walked away as the sole survivor of that mess. Instead of explaining, Damien mocks him, asking if this seasoned tough guy is just another one of his uncle's lapdogs. Shifting focus immediately, he raises his voice at Pucker and announces that the price for this transaction just went way up. The ex-centurion figures the payout for the job needs to be tripled after such a tragic outcome. Taking advantage of the kid's extortion, the criminal pulls out his backup knife and agrees that getting paid extra for his dead men makes perfect sense. To show he's not messing around, the kid tells the old man to take a good look at the messy damage on his blade under the dim light. Knowing full well he's not dealing with an average kid, the hooded thug leaps forward fiercely to kick off the fight. In the back, the relative starts panicking, yelling that paying triple for the job would literally bankrupt him. While launching his brutal attacks, the fighter plays dirty, threatening to walk away from the brawl if he doesn't get the max payout. The guy in the suit sweats bullets and screams from a distance, watching the insane, heavy-hitting brawl going down right at his office door. But the guy's terror hits a whole new level when Damien fires up his core, blasting an overwhelming aura from his eyes. Scared to death behind his fancy chair, Pucker screams that he agrees to the triple payout if they can just keep him breathing. Catching the suit's panic, the assassin draws his weapon and declares that they have a deal. He keeps it real, saying he doesn't hold a grudge over his dead boys since, at the end of the day, it's all just business. Staring his opponent dead in the eye, Damien feels the exact opposite, swearing he has a deep, burning hatred for this crew of dirtbags. The painful memories flood back, reminding him how in his previous life he lived like trash for ages, dodging through sketchy back alleys. To make those awful times even worse, his magical energy core got completely shattered during one of those runs. Determined to rewrite his fate, the kid grips the spear tight and decides he won't let it slide, ordering his enemy to die quietly. Losing his mind over the kid's cockiness, the criminal goes all out, hurling angry insults at him. Using his momentum, the mercenary smoothly pulls a hidden blade from his waist and throws it right at the target. Mid-attack, the huge guy gets confused, thinking the kid is aiming for a counterattack at his legs. Crouched low, Damien spins his weapon and realizes this dude is definitely not some amateur fighter. With crazy reflexes, the ex-centurion lifts the iron shaft and flawlessly blocks the sneak attack. The clash deflects the thrown knife far away, sending it flying harmlessly down the mansion's fancy hallway. Keeping the combo going, the masked guy spins his body, using his own momentum to deliver a heavy sword swing. Mapping out every inch of the fight, the kid predicts that the second the guy covers his face, his leg will be wide open. Just like he planned, the tip of the spear pierces the attacker's thigh with zero mercy, making crimson spray instantly. Not even caring about the hole in his leg, the assassin uses his free arm to throw a lethal punch straight at the kid's face. Surprised by the tricky move, the boy's eyes go wide and he dives to the side trying to dodge the danger. The sword barely misses him, proving to our hero that this giant dude really is a hardened veteran. Amidst the chaos, the criminal realizes he just sliced thin air and gets confused about how his target vanished from sight. Slipping right behind the guy, Damien notes that the smaller knife in his right hand was the real fatal threat the whole time. Using the blind spot, the kid flips the spear and brutally smashes the blunt end right into the back of his enemy's neck. A sigh of relief leaves the kid's mouth, and he coldly states that he's already figured out all of his opponent's tricks. With his pride shattered and his body aching, the guy grits his teeth and spits out every curse word in the book at the boy. Boiling with hate, the thug screams he's going to end the kid right there and goes for one last, desperate panic attack. However, that rage dies instantly when the assassin gets hit with a harsh dose of reality. Unable to take a single step forward, the man coughs up a massive amount of red and collapses to the floor, totally defeated. Staring at the body dumped on the rug, the soldier concludes that no matter how dangerous he seemed, the guy was just another street thug. With the path clear, the ex-military boy drags his weapon down the dark hallway, heading straight for the boss's office. Inside, the guy in the suit drops to his knees, shaking from head to toe, and stutters out a plea for his nephew to hear his apologies. But the kid completely ignores the pathetic acting and marches forward with pure focus, ready to get payback for the betrayal. Terrified that he's about to kick the bucket, Pucker throws his hands up crying, begging desperately for the kid to stay away. Outside the house, a horrific scream of pain tears through the quiet night, settling the matter for good. The scene cuts to the inside of a fancy bank, where a teller confirms a massive fortune has just been wired to the kid's account. Looking over the paperwork, our MC figures that grabbing the insurance money was the fairest move after all that carnage. Happy with the cash he scored, he hands back the papers and leaves the big bucks growing under the banker's watch. As the kid is about to turn the corner, the employee gets curious and asks where he's planning to head off to next. The guy points outside, noting that the luxury ride parked out front looks ready for a cross-country road trip. The ex-centurion looks back calmly and says he's going to enlist in the military, leaving the suit completely stunned. Once the trip gets rolling, the kid mentions he still needs to meet a few important VIPs along the way. Resting his face against the window, he feels the carriage bumping along and gets lost in thought about the tragedy that's going to wreck the world. Knowing full well his old crew is in the army, the soldier admits that the battlefield is the only place he really belongs. He clearly remembers that in about 5 years, the empire is going to collapse and force every single kid to fight. The terrifying image of war's destruction flashes in his mind, proving that a coming era of absolute carnage won't spare a soul. Since he managed to save his mana core from getting trashed in the streets this time around, the game is going to change drastically. Laser focused on his goal, the kid knows that enlisting voluntarily right now gives him a massive edge over waiting until he turns 25. The current game plan is to hit the capital and grind an advanced mana technique non-stop for a week before making any moves. Staring at the scenery rolling by the window, our hero promises that in this new life, he won't be pushed around by bad luck. With his chest puffed out with confidence, the young guy swears to himself that he'll crush everyone and take total control of the situation. After a few days of traveling and hardcore secret training, the trip ends right in front of a colossal military base. Over in the testing area, a massive boom echoes when a pole pierces a training dummy with ridiculous power. From a distance, 2 veteran guards are totally shook by the sight, wondering where a kid got that kind of striking power. Ignoring the spectators, Damien keeps swinging at the air like a madman, showing off absolutely flawless combat form. Taking a breather, he looks at his own bruised hand and complains that his teenage body just can't handle the recoil. The soft, beat-up skin is nothing compared to the thick, calloused hands he had in his past life. His quick break is cut short when a superior walks up, wanting to know if the kid is looking to enlist. Genuinely impressed, the trainer praises the kid's form and asks where he learned such a high-level spear technique. The kid freezes internally, remembering that this basic move is actually the main technique used by the Empire's elite squads. Spinning a smooth lie, the ex-centurion claims he learned the moves from his late father, making the officer feel pretty awkward. Keeping the act going, the kid makes up a story about how his old man was a huge fan of the troops, which was why he was there, getting him instantly approved. Totally buying the sad sob story, the officer feels a bit bad and tells the kid to drop the formalities with him. Quickly changing the subject, the trainer smiles friendly-like and asks for the talented kid's name. Solid as a rock, the rookie gives a brief Damien, waiting for the next move. Loving the kid's attitude, the superior gives him a light pat on the back and wishes him the best on the physical exams. Giving a respectful bow, the kid says thanks and watches closely as the guy disappears down the stone steps. All alone in a secluded spot, the ex-soldier takes a deep breath and channels his energy until a purple ball of mana forms in his hand. Feeling the power buzzing in his skin, he soaks in that awesome feeling he hasn't had since his previous life. A huge wave of relief mixes with pure hype, making the kid silently celebrate finally being able to use magic again. Pulling this off was only possible thanks to a super overpowered method that hasn't even been invented yet by some Empire genius. In his past life, he used to grind this exact same technique in dark alleys out of pure desperation, even with a busted core. His old military buddies had zero pity and constantly cracked jokes at the captain's expense, trying to figure out why he worked so hard for nothing. Whenever he heard the mocking, the soldier would lose it and start blasting insults at his men all over the camp. Looking back fondly, Damien realizes that all that painful, joke-worthy training became the absolute foundation for controlling his power right now. With his physical and magical stats sharpened, the kid focuses on the fact that all that's left is to wipe the floor with the competition in the practical test. While checking out the other recruits, he remembers a famous guy who was in this exact same batch. Our MC gets curious, wondering what that silver-haired veteran who he only met much later on looked like back then. The massive crowd of applicants piles up in the giant training field to kick off the military evaluations. Right out of the gate, the first test requires all hopefuls to deadlift a super heavy rock off the ground. It sounds easy enough, but pressing 30 kilos over your head is the perfect filter to weed out the scrawny rookies. Cool as can be, Damien tosses the rock up and secures his pass without breaking a sweat. Our hero admits to himself that this is pure child's play now that he's hit level 1 mana manipulation. As soon as that stage wraps up, the officer yells for the crowd's attention to announce the next challenge. Straight to the point, the evaluator says the second phase of the test starts right this second. He lays out that the newbies will be running a brutal, side-by-side endurance race. The time limit is an hour and a half, and pushing or shoving along the way is totally fair game. However, straight-up assaulting the competition is strictly banned, since judges are hiding in the pack keeping an eye on things. On top of that, stepping out of bounds means instant disqualification. Running the rules through his head, the ex-Centurion figures this phase could actually be pretty entertaining. With that, the kids line up on the long red strip marked in the dirt. Out of nowhere, a blonde kid pops up, looking surprised that they both ended up in the same heat. The kid points a finger and admits he's been keeping a close eye on our MC for quite a while now. The boy doesn't get why he's getting all this attention, but tries hard to remember where he's seen that face before. Speaking super clearly, the blonde kid thinks the reason he's staring is pretty obvious. The guy leans in with a piercing look and claims he knows Damien can use magic. He breaks down that there's no rule stopping commoners from using power, but usually those guys are backed by loaded rich clans. Recognizing the kid's features, the ex-soldier is stunned and drops his own name when asked. The boy introduces himself as Yahello, confirming the suspicion that the famous hero was also at this boot camp. The veteran remembers the kid's legendary career, becoming a general and scoring a count title by age 30. Being super polite, Yahello admits he was bored since there were no kids his age around and suggests they give it their all. The duo shakes hands, with the hero deciding to use this chance to build some solid networking. The chat gets cut off the second the superior barks at everyone to get ready for the start of the test. At the signal, the massive crowd takes off in a frantic stampede down the dirt track. However, the two main boys intentionally hang out in the back of the pack, watching the mob pull away. Some runners glance back, totally confused by why these kids are moving like snails. The blonde kid scopes out the massive dudes leading the pack and notes that breaking through their human wall is the real challenge here. Yahello suggests the big brain play is to chill in the back and only overtake the crowd at the very end of the race. The ex-Centurion smirks, saying that's not his style, and blasts off with unreal speed, kicking up a huge dust cloud. The blonde kid is left totally in the dust, shouting in pure shock at his new buddy's crazy move. Further ahead, the undercover judges agree to take it easy until the last 10 minutes of the evaluation. But one of the instructors looks confused when he hears insanely fast footsteps coming their way. He panics when he spots the kid sprinting like a maniac straight toward the group, tearing up the track. One of the higher-ups tells the crew to just scare the kid a bit, rather than actually hurting him. Joking around, a giant instructor laughs, saying he won't pay the medical bills if the kid runs into his massive shoulders. Using the opening, Damien smoothly slides right under the big guy's arm and tells him to get out of the way. The seasoned soldier is dumbfounded, unable to process how his target slipped by so easily. With flawless body control, our MC breezes past the veterans, leaving them completely in the dust. Freaking out over the fail, the team leader orders his guys to stop the kid's advance right now. The fighter dodges the barricades lightning fast, fully aware that the instructors are way tougher than regular rookies. Even so, he knows these guys are just basic base evaluators. Watching this insane display of skill, Yahello cracks up, totally loving his new partner's guts. Hyped up, the blonde kid kicks into high gear, determined not to be left behind in this friendly rivalry. Yahello leaps up, stepping on a rookie's back, using the big dude as a springboard to pick up even more speed. The bold move shatters the fear of the other runners, who decide to just copy the kid's game plan. The mob charges forward with everything they've got, trampling right over the human wall set up by the instructors. The result is pure chaos on the track, with guys falling over and screaming while trying to force their way through. Watching the madness from afar, the bosses realize things have totally gone off the rails on the field. One officer asks if they should call for backup, but gets a firm order to stay out of it. Head instructor Raymond argues that stepping in would make the test look rigged. He emphasizes that breaking the human wall is a real display of skill, just like falling behind is a sign of failure. Flashing a slight smile, Raymond breathes a sigh of relief, glad he was right about that unpredictable kid's talent. The chaos sparked by the two geniuses acted like fuel, forcing all the other recruits to step up. Our main guy knows that on a real battlefield, true leaders are the ones who can light that kind of fire. Gasping for air and dripping with sweat, the kid mentally checks off that he's already on the second-to-last lap. The final stretch of the grueling run hits, demanding every last drop of energy the young guy has left. Catching up to his buddy on the track, Yahello calls out to him like they're old pals. The blonde kid jokes that he looks way too fresh and asks if starting a riot was the game plan all along. Looking at the wrecked, gasping runners around them, the ex-soldier knows for a fact he'd be in the same boat if he couldn't use magic. Flashing a smile back, he tells his buddy that if you've got a trump card, you'd better use it without holding back. Afel nods and laughs, finding the new guy's whole vibe incredibly fascinating. The fighter returns the good energy, as the two share the final stretch of the race running side by side. Crossing the finish line together, the duo secures an instant pass, leaving the instructors absolutely speechless. Far from the dirt track, inside a plush office, a powerful guy makes comments about the genius kid who just enlisted. The suited underling confirms it, reporting that Commander Raymond sent up a file raving about the 13-year-old. Tapping his fingers on the wooden desk, the shadowy boss thinks Raymond has way too high standards to be blown away by just anything. Curiosity fills the room, making the big boss admit he's officially interested in this new military prodigy. Wearing a fur coat and rocking an eye patch, the commander stands up, demanding to know the kid's name right this second. The story cuts back to the sunny courtyard of the base, where the newbies are huddled together, sweating bullets with anxiety. In front of the scoreboard, the vibe is pure agony and heartbreak for the guys who washed out of the physical test. While some celebrate passing with happy tears, our hero thinks all this hype is a bit much. He remembers that with the war looming in the future, the mandatory draft is going to become the ultimate nightmare for these kids. Staring peacefully at the clear sky, the boy figures the country is still in its super naive, peaceful phase right before everything goes to hell. Pulling him out of his deep thoughts, Afel walks up dropping compliments and asking if they're a squadmates now. Damien confirms he saw his own name on the passing list and bounces the question back to see if his buddy made the cut too. The blonde kid excitedly points at the scoreboard, showing that his friend's name is sitting pretty right at the very top of the list. Keeping it real, Afel says they need to watch each other's backs, even if they end up getting dumped into different units. While walking side by side across the open base, the kid asks what the ex-military guy is planning for their days off before boot camp starts for real. Playing it cool, our MC replies that he has some urgent business to take care of during the break. Intrigued, the future general asks what's so urgent, but gets a brush off about having to buy some mandatory supplies. Trying to be a bro, the blonde kid warns him that army boots are notoriously stiff and highly recommends buying some thick insoles. Internally, the soldier remembers he knows that all too well after getting his feet destroyed in the army during his last life. Keeping up the act, Damien says thanks for the solid tip, while the other guy jokes that there's no need to mention it. Waving from a distance, the blonde kid announces he also has some personal stuff to handle in the city. The ex-centurion is a bit thrown off by the sudden goodbye and just watches his buddy walk away. Keeping the energy up, Afel tells the recruit to gear up properly for training and swears he'll see him next week. Our hero tracks his partner with his eyes until he disappears into the busy crowd. Out of nowhere, a hooded old man walks up to the boy, calling him by the secret name Alan, which leaves Damien super suspicious. Watching the two from afar, the ex-soldier remembers the question about the real reason he wanted to join the army. Mid-run, Afel had asked how a mana user that's skilled could possibly just be a regular nobody. Jogging memory lane, our MC had fired back, wanting to know if his buddy was also hiding some big secret. Back then, the fighter straight-up confessed that the military was the only place he actually felt like he belonged. Snapping back to reality, Damien figures the blonde kid is definitely hiding some massive secrets of his own. Far away, the hooded old guy asks curiously if the rookie was someone important they'd keep running into. Afel changes the subject lightning fast and orders the servant to prep the departure, getting called young master right after. Sounding annoyed, the blonde kid demands that his servant Alan stop using fancy noble titles in front of other people. The old man apologizes for the slip-up, as both of them finally vanish into the capital's back alleys. The camera pans out, showing off the peaceful, sunny vibe of the massive imperial capital. Walking solo through the shopping district, the ex-soldier admits to himself that it's seriously hard to believe this piece is real. Looking at the food stalls packed with grub, the guy remembers that the capital from his past was a completely gutted wasteland. The brutal flashback shows a time when citizens dragged themselves through the dirt begging for a measly crust of stale bread. Knowing that all this peace is going to evaporate in half a decade, the fighter decides he needs to hustle. Laser-focused on his master plan, our hero picks up the pace, determined to track down the famous Urk Trading Company. The MC calculates that relics, weapons, and rations will become the most valuable things on the planet once the war kicks off. Thinking about the nation's economy, he figures that merchant guilds will hold the real power in the region. With that in mind, the old soldier remembers that the Urk Company became the most overpowered faction in the future. The memory drags him straight back to a ruined military camp where his old squad was resting on dry dirt. On that gloomy day, a soldier ran up to the captain, reporting that the highly anticipated supplies had finally dropped. Spotting the fancy wagons crossing the wasteland, the soldier instantly recognized the banner of the famous merchant guild. The grunts were grumbling with jealousy, complaining that the filthy rich lived in luxury while they bled out in the war. Stepping in to calm the squad down, Damien defended the company, reminding everyone that those weapons and food were given away for free. The guy looked down in shame, admitting he was just bitter because the endless battles were draining his soul. Watching the crates being unloaded, another buddy praised the guild for being so generous during a massive shortage. Shutting down the chatter, the captain ordered everyone to grab their rations right away. While the squad happily jogged over to the wagons, the officer stayed back, watching the whole thing from a distance. One of the guards called out to the captain, pointing right at the guy who was supposedly the boss of the mega-rich company. The kid confirmed it, pointing at a dude wearing a long white cape standing in front of the carriages. Staring at the mysterious millionaire from afar, the ex-soldier got a nagging feeling that the guy was a massive idiot. Snapping back to the sunny present, the story shows the bustling streets right in the heart of the huge imperial capital. Walking down the block, the kid remembers rumors that the company was already doing charity work way before the war even started. Doing the math in his head, he figures that out of the 40 businesses in the capital, only about 7 actually care about helping the poor. With the game plan set, the young guy decides to hit up the richest places that have a track record of charity first. Time flies by and the sun starts dipping below the horizon, painting the clouds a cool orange color. Totally wiped out from all the walking, our MC stops in front of one last door, praying his search ends right here. He slowly opens the door and calls out for an employee, hoping he didn't just waste his entire afternoon. A guy in a suit pops up in the main lobby, politely asking how he could help the young customer. The kid explains he heard about the organization's charity work and says he wants to drop some cash on a good cause. The merchant flashes a wide smile, praising the respectable and totally mature mindset of the kid. Introducing himself properly, the owner says his name is Yerk, the top dog of the Hamel Trading Group. Hearing that familiar name, the ex-soldier freezes for a second, realizing he finally found the exact guy he was hunting for. Sitting at the conference table, the young guy takes a risk and asks an awkward question to see if the man has any sons. Laughing off the weird question, Yerk calmly replies that he only has one very childish daughter at home. This bombshell totally crushes the kid's hopes, making him wonder if he just chased down another dead end. The boy's thoughts are cut short when the office door swings open out of nowhere. A girl's voice announces she's home, making the kid snap his head around in total shock. Matching the face of the blonde girl with the cape-wearing guy from the future, Damien realizes, mind blown, that he found his person. The merchant tells his daughter to introduce herself, explaining that the kid is there to fund their charity projects. Acting friendly, the girl greets the ex-centurion politely while trying to figure out what the heck is going on. She double-checks his plan to donate and gets a yes from the kid, who is still processing the whole situation. The young guy's brain is doing flips, since in his past life the big boss of the company was 100 a dude. Piecing together the crazy facial resemblance and the age, he figures out the girl must have taken over the company using a disguise later on. Keeping up her business face, the girl bluntly asks exactly how much this generous donation is going to be. Our hero rests his chin on his hands and drops the bomb that he wants to pump 300 gold coins into the company's vault. The sheer weight of that insane offer leaves the dad and daughter paralyzed with shock, unable to believe a kid is dead serious. Trying his best not to lose his cool, the dad stutters, asking what the sponsor expects in return for such a massive pile of cash. Oozing confidence, the kid demands a seat at the table for their deals, locking in a cut of all their future profits. The seasoned merchant sweats bullets at the heavy demand, feeling the pressure of making deals with a kid this bold. With the room thick with tension, the boss gets serious and asks where exactly all this fortune came from. Staying cool, Damien says there's nothing to worry about, claiming he just wants to put his late parents' inheritance to good use. Sold on the excuse, Yerk apologizes for being harsh, and the kid takes it in stride, saying he totally gets where the guy is coming from. The businessman says they'll need to hold a meeting to hash out the details, and the kid agrees to come back later for the final verdict. Right after the boy leaves, the vibe in the room shifts, and the blonde girl demands to know what her dad is playing at. The veteran merchant admits it's just pure insanity that this mystery sponsor is only 13 years old. Thinking back to the kid's sharp glare during the meeting, the old man is absolutely certain he's no ordinary child. Changing the subject completely out of the blue, Yerk points out it's a shame the kid isn't 5 years older, or he'd be the perfect husband for her. Mortified by her dad's comment, the blonde girl lets out an agonizing scream right in the middle of the office. Out on the street, you can still hear the girl yelling in protest, demanding her dad drop that crazy idea immediately. With the business deal locked in, time flies, and the highly anticipated draft day finally arrives for the kid. Looking up at the clear sky, the young guy takes a deep breath, feeling like this moment marks the real start of his new journey. Raising a hand to the sky, the boy swears to himself that, unlike his useless past life, this time everything is going to be different. He curls his fingers with intense purpose, promising that he'll be the only one to swallow this entire nation whole. Arriving at the barracks, the ex-soldier checks to see if he really got dumped into the first squad of the 3rd Testing Division. Scanning the rookies chilling on their beds, the kid realizes he doesn't recognize a single face and wonders where a fell ended up. Walking toward an empty bunk, he misses his buddy since he was the only other guy his age. His thoughts get cut off when the squad commander walks into the room, greeting the newbies loud and clear. Superior Brian officially introduces himself to the recruits and lets them know he'll be the one evaluating them for the next month. Snapping his fingers, the leader announces that a full baggage search for contraband food and booze is starting right this second. With a wicked grin, the veteran tells anyone hiding smokes or liquor to fess up now, promising to punish the smart guys in a very creative way. Our MC tenses up for a second, remembering he accidentally packed some tobacco, though the merchant swore the booze wouldn't be found. Seeing the panic on everyone's faces, he thinks they're all idiots for not hiding their stash better before the bags got tossed. The inspection moves from bed to bed, with the leader digging through stuff and finding nothing crazy in the first few bags. Stopping right in front of the kid, the commander switches gears and asks how old he is, totally caught off guard by his baby face. The ex-centurion fires back instantly that he's 13, which leaves the squad commander seriously impressed. Eavesdropping from the back, a massive bald guy complains that the world is going to hell if the army is letting kids join the patrols. The kid snaps his head around instantly, making the big guy complain about getting death glares from a literal child. Keeping a cool head, our hero figures it's a waste of energy to trade insults with trash like that. Even so, the warrior burns the loudmouth's face into his memory, promising to show him that getting beat up by a kid hurts just as much. The bald guy gets a weird chill down his spine and starts shaking, right before the superior randomly calls him out in the middle of the room. Cutting to the chase, the sergeant tells the rookie to dump his bag, but the giant tries to lie, saying it's already empty. Sick of the games, the officer gives a threatening warning, asking if he has to dig through the bag himself. Scared out of his mind, the loudmouth panics and flips the bag upside down, dropping a bunch of banned items all over the floor. With the guilty parties busted, the commander announces loud and clear what happens to anyone who tries to smuggle contraband onto his base. The penalty drops instantly, and the pranksters are sentenced to run laps around the training perimeter all night long. Watching the show, Damien thinks they totally had it coming, while the superior tells the rest of the squad to hurry up and unpack. After spending some time checking everyone's gear, the veteran finally announces that the inspection phase is officially over. With the room sorted out, Brian says he needs to pick a temporary squad leader to run things when he's not around. The commander pulls a piece of paper from his uniform to check the stats of the new recruits. Looking over the files, he sounds hyped, saying there's a guy in the squad who completely crushed the evaluations with top scores. Looking for the owner of the perfect score, the superior asks out loud if there's someone named Damien in the room. A rookie with a mohawk looks confused, trying to guess who the boss is talking about, figuring that personality matters just as much as skill. Pointing straight at the kid, Brian asks if he's the guy named Damien, which the kid confirms with a nod. The mohawk dude is stunned, struggling to process that the top scorer wasn't the jacked guy he expected. Even the sergeant is a bit taken aback, connecting the name of the genius recruit to the kid standing right in front of him. Trying to make sense of it, the officer remembers the kid just said he was a measly 13 years old. Outraged, the mohawk guy stands up angrily and demands to know when the army turned into a freaking daycare. The officer tells the big guy to zip it, but the recruit pushes back, asking if he said anything that wasn't true. The rebellious grunt argues that the squad leader should be the commander's right-hand man and actually look like a leader. Pointing a finger at our MC, the guy swears that squad discipline will go straight out the window if a kid is put in charge. Damien secretly agrees that taking the leadership gig would just bring headaches, but he's getting seriously annoyed by the loudmouth's nagging. Deciding to dish it right back, the kid says out loud that he'd do a way better job than a brainless idiot, making the man explode with rage. Trying to keep a lid on things, Brian confirms the troublemaker's name is Kyle and tries to dial back the yelling. But before anything else, the officer's giant hand grabs the jerk by the collar with zero hesitation. Looking absolutely terrifying, the commander warns that if he calls a fellow soldier a child again, the punishment won't just be a verbal warning. Swallowing his fear, the big guy accepts the officer's order and backs down immediately. The sergeant lets go of the soldier and admits the guy actually has a point, since the role requires real authority. Taking advantage of the pause, the bully cuts off the officer and proposes settling the issue with a duel right then and there. Kyle challenges the kid to a one-on-one fight to decide who gets the spot and prove who's actually built for the job. Weighing the bold offer, the veteran turns his head and asks if our MC is willing to accept the challenge. Thinking fast, the kid realizes this is the perfect chance to earn some respect and accepts the fight on the spot. Pointing at the giant, Damien asks if the goal is just to absolutely destroy this fool, making his opponent boil over with rage. The officer shouts, asking if the rest of the squad is down for the fight, and gets a massive cheer of approval from the whole room. With the matter settled, the commander decides not to waste time and tells the squad to follow the two fighters to the training field. On the way there, the Mohawk guy glares at our MC, keeping up his arrogant, overly confident attitude. Out on the dirt field, the ex-Centurion stands completely relaxed, while Brian officially announces the start of the match. The commander explains that the only rule is to stop attacking the second someone taps out, and asks if both guys are ready. The giant flashes a cocky smile and cracks his neck, confirming he's more than ready for a massacre. Looking incredibly chill, the kid also confirms they can start whenever they want. In the middle of the dirt ring with the crowd watching, the superior gives the final green light to start the brawl. Cracking his knuckles, Kyle jokes that he feels bad about beating up a kid and tells him to make the first move. With zero patience, the bully grits his teeth and decides to just go on the offensive himself. The rookie charges at the kid like a freight train, screaming that he's going to beat him like a stray dog for having such a big mouth. Watching the charge, our hero thinks to himself that the guy's speed is actually pretty impressive for a total newbie. Looking bored out of his mind, the young guy easily dodges the strike, figuring that move isn't anywhere near enough to put him down. Keeping his surreal chill, our MC sidesteps the attack effortlessly, deciding that this is barely a warm-up. The giant keeps swinging, furious that the kid perfectly predicted where his heavy hit was going to land. Using his crazy speed, the kid just leans back and lets another punch hit nothing but air. Absolutely tilted by all the dodging, the rookie angrily announces that there's no running away this time. With that, the bully clasps his hands together and slams them down on the ground, kicking up a massive dust tornado. Riding the explosion, Damien jumps smoothly over the smoke, dodging the surprise attack without breaking a sweat. Moving like lightning, he lands right behind his enemy and grabs the giant's short hair with an iron grip. Caught totally off guard, the guy asks in confusion where the heck the kid just spawned from. Channeling power through his body, the kid fires up his core, making his left eye glow with pure, intense magic. Without giving him a second to defend, the fighter delivers a brutal knee straight to the opponent's wide-open face. Landing back on the dirt, the ex-soldier figures the giant will need a minute to recover after eating a hit packed with that much energy. But that guess is proven wrong when the man catches himself on the ground, showing he's way tougher than he looks. Blinded by rage and with a busted face, the giant charges like a wild animal, promising to wipe the kid off the map. Seeing how stubborn the guy is, our hero decides it's high time to put this fight to bed for good. Planting his feet, he preps a devastatingly heavy punch to meet the opponent's panicked charge. The impact of the punch echoes across the field like a gunshot, while the giant screams in pain from the crushing blow. Unable to stand, the bully's massive frame crashes into the dirt, throwing up a thick cloud of dust all around them. Checking on the knocked-out opponent, the kid calmly states that the big guy is no longer an issue. With a terrifyingly intense look and dirty hands, the boy glares at the other recruits, asking if anyone else wants to test their luck. The threat works like a charm, and the newbies shake in their boots after witnessing the absolute beatdown handed out by a mere child. Cutting through the tension, the instructor calls the fight and officially names Damien as the squad leader. Away from the dirt field, the scene shifts to the beaten giant limping his way to the base's medical center. Totally gutted by his own weakness, Kyle complains that he never thought he'd wake up being dragged to the infirmary after passing out. The painful memory of the fight flashes in his mind, highlighting the exact moment he ate that bone-crushing punch to the face. The rookie thinks bitterly about how he showed up thinking he was untouchable, only to get completely humiliated right out of the gate. Seeing the giant barge in, the other injured guys in the room immediately go on high alert. The guys whisper nervously about having to hold him down, terrified that the dude will start a riot and end up hurt again. Ignoring the whispers, the big guy freezes when he spots our hero in the middle of the med bay and calls out his name. Freaking everyone out, the giant drops to his knees on the floor, accepting his defeat and pledging absolute loyalty to his new boss. The kid is totally caught off guard by this extreme reaction and wonders if maybe he hit the guy a little too hard in the head. Still kneeling, Kyle confesses that even though the kid was the youngest guy he ever fought, he was easily the strongest by a mile. The man doubles down on wanting to be his right-hand man, leaving Damien stunned that this troublemaker actually cares about respect. Dropping the weirdly formal act, our MC tells him he doesn't need to use any fancy titles and asks to just be called by his first name. Offering a hand to seal the deal, the ex-centurion suggests they give it their all from now on, which the giant happily accepts. With the beef squashed, time flies by, and the first week after enlistment brings a grueling cycle of hardcore training. The soldiers run non-stop across the open field hauling massive sandbags, gasping for air and suffering under the weight of the brutal drills. As soon as the officer calls time on physical training, he orders the new squad leader to follow him to another building immediately. Drenched in sweat and trying to catch his breath, the kid follows the commander through the base, trying to guess what this random summons is about. Stopping in front of some heavy double doors, the boy figures the admin office must have some big news waiting. Walking into the massive room, he quickly realizes he isn't the only one called in for this mystery leadership meeting. Outside the formation, the evaluator tells them they'll only find out why they're here when the top brass decides to speak. In the middle of the room, a blonde guy points at our MC and openly mocks him for looking scrawny, calling him a toad. Adding to the insult, the guy's buddy jokes about how hilarious it is seeing a kid walking around with a giant bodyguard. Feeling the disrespect, Damien stares the guy down, which just annoys the veteran who hates being looked at. The cocky rookie laughs it off, calling the kid a brat and trying to make him feel like he doesn't belong in the room. The trash talk gets shut down by the commander's booming voice, ordering everyone to zip it and knocking off the unprofessional behavior in the office. Seething with annoyance, the blonde guy mutters a quick threat, promising he's going to settle the score with the kid later. Taking the floor, the superior explains that he called all the reps to announce a massive squad versus squad tournament scheduled for next week. The fighters cheer together, agreeing to get their teams in shape for this epic midterm exam. With the announcement over and the meeting adjourned, the recruits flood out of the office, buzzing with rumors and theories about the tournament. Walking down the camp hallways, that arrogant guy from earlier tries to start crap again by calling out the ex-centurion. The bully accuses the kid of not knowing his place and warns that his cocky attitude is going to end with a massive loss. Defending his buddy, Kyle fires back, calling the guy a massive jerk for trying to bully someone just because of their age. Laughing off the argument, the cocky kid mocks the moment and says the giant has no clue who's actually going to get a beatdown in this tournament. Tired of dragging out the fight, the officer tells his squad to leave the two idiots running their mouths in the hall and walk away. But our hero isn't about to let that slide and shouts quickly, forcing the instigator to freeze in his tracks. Acting totally casual, the kid asks what squad the guy belongs to and gets the answer that he's the commander of the 4th Division. A sinister smile spreads across Damien's face as he promises to remember that detail for the highly anticipated clash between the units. Ignoring the kid's warning, the enemy walks off, but one of his buddies walks up and asks if the kid is the famous Damien. The partner mentions he's heard a ton of rumors about the kid's crazy skills from a soldier named Yahello. The guy introduces himself as Gerard from the 3rd Platoon, and friendly-like, says he's going to need the kid's help in the tournament. As soon as he gets back to his own barracks, our MC lets out a commanding shout, demanding his soldiers' full attention right now. Standing tall in the middle of the room, he stares down the confused rookies, who have no idea why he's so hyped up out of nowhere. Getting straight to the point, the kid announces that in exactly 7 days, they'll be throwing down in a massive squad-on-squad battle. Gripping the unit's red banner tight, the young guy declares with absolute certainty that they are taking the top spot on the podium no matter what. Clapping his hands to keep the team focused, he highlights a crucial detail about the 3 enemy teams they're about to face. The ex-centurion throws his arms wide and orders that their main goal for the test is to absolutely crush the 4th Division without an ounce of mercy. With a terrifying red glow in his eyes, Damien wraps up the speech by telling them to focus entirely on destroying that squad's commander. The chill vibe is quickly replaced by insane pressure during the 2nd week, as all the recruits train like animals across the military base. Gathering the squads on the dirt field, the officer reminds everyone that the army's true goal is conquest, and kicks off a lesson on battle tactics. The commander hypes up the soldiers, pointing out that showing off rare skills guarantees huge bonus points for their final grade. The troops listen closely, while our hero figures that grabbing those extra points is the smartest way to climb the ranks fast. A confident smirk pops up on the kid's face when he realizes his rivals are going to have to sweat blood if they want a chance out here. Focusing on the practical stuff, the superior demonstrates the famous wedge formation as one of the deadliest attacks for shattering enemy lines. The veteran wraps up the lesson warning that the move hits like a truck, but if the main wall breaks, the whole team goes down with it. Thinking over the strat, our MC is relieved that his squad has the exact right guy to lead the charge and unleash all that destructive power. Without wasting time, the commander splits the group in half to practice the wedge formation right on the spot. Taking charge, Damien sends Kyle to the other side to lead the defense, cockily promising that he won't lose this time around. Calling his squad over, the kid huddles the team up, ready to drop some top-tier advice on the strategy. The rookies are amazed and ask if he's done this before, getting the same old excuse that his military dad taught him the ropes. Whispering among themselves, the newbies notice the movement and figure the rival team is going to use the exact same strategy on offense. But that just gets the squad even more hyped, finding the idea of a head-on clash super exciting and getting ready to brawl. Handing out orders, the former commander tells the biggest guys to line up right behind him, while the smaller dudes hold the shields on the flanks. The young guy demonstrates the exact stance and tells the recruits to hold their shields at face level, getting an instant "yes sir" from the unit. Scanning the field, he notices the enemy team is putting all their energy into defense, but figures it won't matter one bit. Hyping up his crew, the kid tells them their only job is to run right over the enemy wall without slowing down, ending the fight in one shot. With both sides locked and loaded, the superior shouts the signal to kick off the practice match immediately. Marching in perfect formation, the enemy squad pushes forward, stomping their boots in the dirt and chanting their cadence. Our hero is actually impressed by the rival team's solid sync for first test, noting they aren't hesitating at all. Seeing Kyle's squad closing in fast, Damien screams at his team to pick up the pace and go all out. Across the field, the soldiers keep their marching rhythm, yelling together as they close the gap. Adjusting his battle stance, the kid realizes his moment has arrived, deciding he won't use any magic and will rely strictly on raw power. He spots the perfect opening to flex his physical strength and yells for everyone to push with absolutely everything they've got. The two wooden walls smash into each other with brutal force, kicking up a massive cloud of dust over the training grounds. Throwing his weight into the front line, Damien tells the battalion to push even harder, aiming right for the gaps in the enemy's defense. It's a simple trick. Focusing on the gaps seriously freaks out the guys trying to hold the line. Deep in the chaos, the former soldier waits for the exact split second when panic wrecks the rivals' coordination. The payoff is instant, as the enemy team's defensive wall completely loses its footing. The clumsy footsteps on the dirt prove that the heavy attack successfully rattled the enemy squad. Totally disoriented, the rival rookies start tripping over each other and hit the deck without knowing what hit them. Furious at the mess, Kyle demands to know what they're doing and orders the whole team to get up right now. With nowhere to run, the giant grits his teeth, curses the situation, and decides he has to fix this mess himself. With a loud grunt, the giant charges forward and slams his shield with max power right into our hero's barricade. Shoving hard to make space, the cocky dude orders the kid to get out of his way once and for all. Using the momentum of the heavy hit, the kid slides effortlessly to the side and mocks him, asking if he's the one supposed to be clearing the path. The slick move leaves Kyle totally off balance and his defense wide open. Not giving him a second to recover, Damien delivers a heavy blow that knocks the huge opponent off his feet for good. Watching his buddy hit the dirt, our MC praises the guy's jacked physique, but warns him he needs to learn how to use his brain with all that muscle. With their captain down, the rest of the enemy team falls apart, making one of the guards admit the kid is straight up scary. The rookie thinks the kid's skinny frame is a total lie, finding it super hard to believe he's the same age as everyone else. Watching the absolute blowout, the commander calls the drill, shouting that Damien's team won the match. Taking the L like a champ, the big guy shakes his buddy's hand, praising his win and promising he'll take the next one. Curious about the tactical play, he asks if aiming for the gaps was on purpose and demands to know how to block that kind of trick. Later that afternoon, the team chills near the barracks, agreeing to use that exact strategy in the main event. Leaning against a wall, our MC proudly watches the group that used to slack off now reviewing their own mistakes without anyone asking. Flashing a smile, he figures the team vibe is perfect, and that victory is a lock if they keep this energy up. Suddenly, the kid drops his smile and turns his head, noticing some weird commotion just up ahead. The rivals from Squad 4 show up pointing and laughing, asking if the recruits lost their minds taking orders from a literal child. Hearing the insult, Kyle immediately loses his temper and steps up, demanding to know what they just called his friend. Keeping up his mocking attitude, the arrogant blonde kid says there's nothing wrong with calling a brat, calling their whole squad a joke. Stirring the pot, the guy blames the squad's commander for not knowing his place and acting like he's actually in charge. Staring at the mess-looking board, the ex-centurion recognizes the guy and wonders if this kid is begging for a beatdown. Determined to dodge any penalties, he orders his battalion to fall back, warning that it's not worth reacting to cheap taunts from losers. But the kid freezes when he hears the totally unexpected response from his own men. Instead of backing down, Kyle and the rest of the team completely lose it and start screaming that the enemies have already lost the war right here. Pointing furiously at the cocky blonde, the giant swears that this particular jerk better be ready to meet his maker. Confused by all the rage, Damien asks if these are the dirtbags from Squad 4 his buddy mentioned, and gets a hard yes. Fueled by a demonic level of pure rage, the rookies swear to exterminate the rival squad and leave absolutely nothing behind. The hate is so real that the squad decides to skip their own break time and go back to hardcore training just to guarantee they deliver a massacre. Watching his team rush back to the training grounds, the kid admits he didn't expect them to take the bait that easily. Even though they disobeyed, a sinister smile creeps onto the ex-soldier's face as he realizes this killer instinct kicked in at the perfect time. Far from the sandy base, the scene shifts to a fancy, perfectly organized office. Sitting at his desk, Commander Varys asks his right-hand man if any standout recruits popped up in this batch. The top officer confirms there are some solid recruits, but highlights that 2 kids in particular are grabbing a lot of attention. Checking the files, the high-ranking officer mentions the duo is super young, and is shocked to see they both already know how to use magic. The superior asks if the kids come from rich families, since that power is insanely rare among lower classes, but the officer shoots down any connection. Analyzing the situation, Varys knows that learning how to refine mana is incredibly expensive, making it pretty much impossible for anyone broke. Staring at the photos of the orphan Damien and the commoner Aphel, the leader starts getting super suspicious of the whole setup. Just then the officer snaps his fingers, remembering a recent brawl between squads that involved our MC. He explains that because the kid is so young for the job, the other squads didn't take him seriously at first. But what really shocked the officer was the moment the soldiers of the first squad went absolutely feral, violently teaming up to defend the kid. The troop leader finds this display of loyalty fascinating, confirming that the recruit has been fully accepted as the unquestioned boss. Tapping his finger on the wooden desk, the leader decides to test the strength of that weird bond with a real trial by fire. The conversation keeps flowing as the duo plots to turn the rookies' lives into an absolute nightmare on the base. The sergeant asks if there's a risk the plan could cause serious damage, but the leader argues that if they break, it just proves they were weak. In the officer's eyes, a squad with bonds that strong has an absolute duty to survive any and all hardships. Flashing a wicked smile, Varys orders an instant difficulty spike, pushing the physical training for both squads to the absolute limit. Back on the training field, the sky turns a weird red color right as the big guy gets a terrible chill down his spine for no reason at all. Later in the dorms, the recruits collapse on their beds, complaining that only their squad and the rival team got hit with that random punishment. Tossing and turning on the wooden bed, one of the kids cries from the pain, calling it totally messed up to be tortured like that just for trash talking. Inside the barracks, Kyle calls out to Damien, complaining that being forced to suddenly do crawl drills is just unacceptable. The kid instantly sees right through the officer's plan, but points out that whether it's fair or foul play, they have to face it head-on. Standing up straight, the boy asks his squad if they really think this camp is some kind of vacation resort. He explains that dragging themselves through the dirt will definitely beat up their bodies, but enduring it will give them a massive endurance boost over the other teams. Hearing that logic, the big guy gulps, realizing that whining makes him look way more immature than a 13-year-old kid. Hyping up the team, the commander admits the first phase is going to suck, but promises he'll help everyone push to their absolute limits. One of the rookies asks in a panic if they're really going to crawl over rocks, and the ex-military guy replies sarcastically, asking if he'd prefer a soft mattress. Kyle notices how calm his buddy looks and points out he seems like a pro at this, which gets an instant yep from the kid. Damien's thoughts drag him back to his miserable past, where he spent countless hours face down in the dirt just trying to stay alive. But the kid knows full well that getting a workout isn't the real goal behind this surprise punishment. He figures that adding a crawling drill to an already exhausting schedule is just a sneaky way to bruise and batter the squad. Covered in bruises, the unit is bound to get stressed out, leading to fights and massive cracks in their teamwork. So our hero figures the real goal of the top brass is to see which squadron or four will actually stick together under pressure. Refusing to fall for leadership's trap, the kid takes charge of the problem and orders the whole squad to grab the socks from their uniforms. The rookies are totally confused by the weird request, while the commander announces that from this moment on, the game changes. Ripping the fabric with his bare hands, the kid promises he's about to teach them a magic trick that will completely save the squad's skin during the drill. Out on the dirt field, the officer checks if the first squad is properly lined up to start the physical session. The commander introduces himself as Nielsen and orders his assistants to get into position to teach the low crawl drill. He explains the move requires staying flat on your chest while keeping your weapon steady, using hands and knees to move super fast. Staring at the obstacle course covered in sharp wire, the man warns they'll be crossing it exactly like that and asks if they're ready. The group shouts as one, confirming they're good to go, and the seasoned guy is happy to see they still have fire in their eyes, unlike their rivals. Cutting to the chase, the officer gives the green light for Team 1 to hit the course with everything they've got. Damien and his soldiers drop to the ground letting out battle cries as they ferociously tear through the gravel course. The assistants are totally shocked by the performance, saying that level of crawling skill is usually only seen in month 4 of training. Nielsen waits for the rookies to collapse, knowing full well that dragging yourself across that specific dirt causes way more pain than regular fatigue. Out of nowhere, the officer goes into a state of absolute panic at what he's seeing on the course. The squad is literally crushing the obstacles at insane speeds, kicking up massive clouds of dust as they go. Totally dumbfounded, the veteran sweats cold, struggling to understand how this could possibly be the rookie's first time doing this drill. The dead silence is broken by an assistant asking the superior when the next team is allowed to hit the track. Stuttering from the shock, the commander approves the next squad, who dive into the rocks with the exact same savage energy as the first group. Analyzing the division's wild performance, the superior is blown away and compares the rookies to insane, starving warriors. Dusting the dirt out of his hair, Damien figures the superior never expected them to crush it so hard on the very first try. Kyle walks up hyped about the brilliant tactical move, admitting it took a lot of acting to fake the pain from the rough terrain. Pulling up his sleeve, the giant shows off the DIY leg pads and swears that tearing their socks in half was the squad's ultimate lifesaver. The rest of the squad gathers around our MC, praising the kid's massive brain for outsmarting that dirty punishment. With training over, the commander calls time and orders everyone to head back to the barracks. Walking back, the big guy asks out of curiosity where the commander learned such a sneaky survival trick. Without missing a beat, the young guy drops the usual lie about learning it from his late dad, but adds that there's a big warning attached. The golden rule he learned the hard way in his past life is to never, ever let the instructor catch you with hidden pads. Kyle bursts into a loud, obnoxious laugh, totally agreeing, while the kid mentally complains about the heavy slaps on his back. Changing focus, the ex-centurion thinks excitedly that now they just need shield training to learn the kingdom's best spear technique. He knows a lot of idiots look down on this basic style compared to the fancy noble arts, but mastering it completely changes the game. The biggest issue is that most guys quit during the basics, but in his original life, this was the warrior's saving grace. Back in those dark days, he grinded that move to the brink of death and evolved into a total monster after meeting his master. Remembering that eccentric guy, the kid wonders if the man is still a total psychopath and is certain their paths will cross again. In the dorm hallway, the fourth squad drags themselves along, completely wrecked, complaining that crawling on those rocks was pure torture. Kyle spots the rivals coming and points out to the leader how pathetic the other guys look right now. Without an ounce of patience, the arrogant blonde yells at his own team, demanding they stop crying in the corners immediately. The duo from the first squad just watches the pathetic mess unfolding from a distance without saying a word. One of the rival grunts loses it and insults his own boss, warning him that pretending to be a tough veteran doesn't make him a god. Taking in the chaos, the big guy notes the vibe over there is awful and wonders if they'd be in the same boat without the sock trick. Laughing to himself, he feels super relieved that his buddy's big brain saved all their skins while the enemies tear each other apart. One of the guys from the rival group glares at Damien, trying to figure out how they got away without a scratch and suspecting some dirty trick. Swallowed by humiliation, the blonde kid clenches his fists, shaking with rage and cursing out the guys from the first squad. Glaring at our hero with pure hatred, he promises to crush every single one of them to steal first place in the competition. The days fly by at camp, and the highly anticipated squad tournament finally arrives. Out on the dirt yard, the senior officer checks roll for all 4 squads and announces that the bracket draw is about to start. In the middle of the military formation, Kyle randomly calls out to his buddy, looking a little confused. The big guy inspects the leader's face up close and mentions he's looking a bit different today. Trying to put his finger on the subtle change, the recruit guesses the kid might have grown a few inches over the week. Another rookie bursts out laughing, defending Damien's height, joking that Kyle is just a freak of nature and telling him to lay off. Our MC shoots him a suspicious look, wondering internally if his squadmate actually sensed the change on pure instinct. The truth is, last night the young guy finally hit the second star of his overpowered mana training method. All the grinding he did in absolute secret, since stepping foot in this camp, was finally paying off big time. Snapping out of his thoughts, the ex-soldier just calls back to the big guy, who answers totally distracted. Laser-focused on the upcoming tournament, the kid decides their squad needs to wipe the floor with the rivals in absolute dominance. He remembers perfectly that the top 5 soldiers of the competition get a free pass to pick any gear they want from the armory. Normally, rookies rush to grab basic weapons or armor enchanted with super simple protection magic. But the warrior's true goal is to get his hands on a valuable ring he found out about from a subordinate in his past life. The piece of jewelry has a continuous magic effect, making it basically top-tier gear and insanely valuable. To snag the relic, he absolutely has to secure first place, worried that the talented Yahello might snatch the prize before he does. Hyped about the tournament vibe, the big guy asks if the leader thinks they can pull it off, getting a confident laugh in response. Our hero claps his hands together with a loud smack, demanding the full attention of everyone in his team right then and there. Stepping up, Kyle yells to his squadmates, confirming the boss guaranteed their absolute victory, hyping up the crowd. Consumed by battle energy, the recruits scream at the top of their lungs that they are definitely going to crush everyone and take the big W. Confirming the squad's support, Kyle notes that the whole team is fully on board right as the announcer calls the first squad to the arena. Walking onto the battlefield, Damien hypes up his crew with total confidence, demanding they take this fight all the way to the top. The evaluator breaks down the rules. The military comp is split into offense and defense, with teams swapping sides after each clash to finish the 2 rounds. He wraps up the rules, warning that the attacking team auto-loses if they don't capture the flag in time, while the rival leader huddles his team. Staring the enemies down, our MC orders his allies to get ready to launch a brutal first strike. The leader reminds everyone to just stick to exactly what they practiced, earning an excited roar of confirmation from the team in the yard. Kyle promises he hasn't forgotten the strat and waits for the order to bulldoze the enemies with max power, knowing raw strength is his specialty. Seconds later, the shout giving the green light echoes through the camp as the 2 massive formations square up on the dirt. With insane aggression, the recruits from the first squad sprint forward, screaming furiously to crush their enemies. The heavy clash of shields kicks up a dust cloud, while the enemy captain orders his men to hold the line and not let the defense break. Unable to fight back, the rival soldiers panic under the monstrous pressure, feeling like they're hitting a solid brick wall with 0 openings. Watching the brawl, the crowd notices Squad 2 survive the first hit, but finds the weird tactical formation of Damien's team super strange. Assessing the situation, our hero realizes the enemy defense is stalling them and screams the command for his team to push through completely. Taking his cue, Kyle lets out a war cry and throws his entire weight forward, violently shoving the wooden shields. The impact throws the defenders off balance, sending them into pure panic when they realize they're being dragged backward and can't stop it. Furious at the humiliation, the opposing captain curses the tactic and yells that they are the attack team, telling his recruits to shut up and just defend. Ignoring the rivals' panic, the kid calls the big guy's name to trigger the next phase of the assault. Holding absolutely nothing back, Kyle announces he's going all out and launches himself like a runaway freight train, running over the guys holding the front line. The opponents are sent flying by the impact and sit there in shock, calling the guy a monster for wiping everyone out using just his shoulders. With their structure shaken, the ex-Centurion calls his buddy again, ordering him to fall back into position on the main line quickly. Taking advantage of the chaos, the team furiously presses against the wood while the leader screams to keep pushing without giving them a breather. The defense commander sweats bullets, unable to figure out how their coordination is so flawless when everyone trained for the exact same amount of time. Spotting the exact moment of collapse, Damien points out the massive gap and orders his squad's final push. With that last charge, the enemy wall is completely shattered, scattering fallen kids all over the dirt yard. Watching from a distance, an impressed officer asks if the instructor gave the team secret extra training, but his buddy admits he's just as shocked. The evaluator confesses he didn't expect such a flawless performance from rookies, comparing their execution to top-tier elite troops. Staring intensely at the field, the man realizes that level of tactical mastery was only possible because of a single prodigy leading the group. Getting back into it, the kid orders his crew to spread out, making room to obliterate whatever's left of the second platoon's blockade. The insane result comes from the fact that every day after passing out from exhaustion, the team voluntarily met up to get secret tactical lessons from the kid. Laser-focused on the guaranteed win, the soldiers raise their guard and yell to hold the line, following the leader's golden advice perfectly. Flashing a proud smile, the sergeant admits he underestimated a kid's leadership, but gives him full credit for producing such crazy results. With the line totally wiped out, the young guy spots the target trying to run away in the back and tells the big guy their golden ticket just showed up. Kyle flashes an excited grin as he hunts for the red flag in the middle of the mess, eager to find where the treasure is hiding. Locking eyes with the tiny flag bearer running away terrified, the heavy recruit celebrates, announcing he found the target. Seeing the massive danger, the defense boss panics and screams for his men to drop the attack and focus everything on stopping the brute. The giant with the mohawk mocks their pathetic attempt as the defenders yell in desperation, piling up into a shield barricade. Keeping totally cool, Kyle laughs at the idiots huddled together, confusing the enemies who can't figure out why he stopped charging. With a wide, sadistic grin, the heavy soldier sarcastically reveals that they walked right into the team's custom-made trap. The confession leaves the barricade totally dizzy, unable to decode what kind of deadly ambush they just swallowed. Right after, the sound of rapid footsteps echoes, showing that someone is sprinting at top speed right over the chaos. Using his buddy's wide back as a solid launch pad, Damien praises the great work and catches even more air. Taking full advantage of the distraction, the ex-Centurion jumps high into the air, soaring right over the lined-up kids without breaking a sweat. Dropping like a missile, he slams into the target's chest with brutal force and snags the red flag right as they crash hard into the ground. The opponent groans, spread-eagled in the mud, while the head instructor calls time, announcing the attacking team's embarrassing loss for taking too long. Hoisting the red flag in victory in the middle of the field, our hero seals the end of the match while all his teammates go absolutely wild. The evaluator calls a quick break before swapping sides, while one officer points out, super impressed, that Damien is probably going to win the tournament easily. Instantly shooting down that theory, the chief sergeant says seriously that he wouldn't bet on a win that early. Pointing his index finger at the camp's secondary arena, the veteran tells his buddy to check out the totally different vibe going on over there. Analyzing this new squad destroying their enemies in combat, he asks if they wouldn't be the perfect match for the Prodigy Kids team. Boiling with pure rage and stomping in the dust, a kid from the defeated squad curses the frustrating situation, swearing nonstop. The rookie grumbles, complaining that they just wanted to use the match against the third platoon as a warm-up before humiliating our MC's team. Sweating cold, another kid complains that they refuse to back down, terrified of losing on offense since they just got beat up while defenseless minutes ago. Foaming at the mouth over the disadvantage, the petty leader of the fourth group demands to know why they forgot the plan and orders everyone to obey by force. Furious at the yelling, a subordinate fires back, telling the boss to get on the front lines instead of crying in the back, proving their teamwork is completely dead. Watching the other team fight, Afel's buddy suggests pushing forward to run over the exhausted enemies, but gets a super calm no in response. The blonde genius smiles, saying that just focusing on the shield bearer's defense is enough, promising the other team will collapse on its own eventually. Agreeing without a second thought, his buddy thinks it's insane that a 14-year-old rookie can read guys' limits that fast. Following the elegant kid on the field, the veteran gets curious about his secret background and mentally confirms the kid's hidden genius. Stepping up to the front, the captain of the third group yells for the squad to keep the attackers in check by holding a solid formation in the dirt. With a muffled bang echoing out, the attacking kids slam angrily into the heavy wooden boards but fail to budge the enemy while an inch. Totally gassed from pushing, the desperate opponent curses the cowardly blockade and begs the other team to man up and fight face to face. Afel's ally perfectly reads the massive drop in morale and stamina of the rival squad, knowing that breaking their stance means an automatic win. With his body giving out completely in the dirty dust, an enemy rookie cries in pain, clinging to his shield and admitting he has zero strength left. Spotting the perfect moment of exhaustion, the young leader of the 3rd Battalion roars the final command, ordering a brutal counterattack. Screaming with heavy fury, the squad charges full force at the tired enemies, planning to slice right through the flimsy backline. The devastating crash completely shatters the main shield's grip, and several kids scream as the walls collapse under the sudden chaos. Seeing the clear path he needed in the terrifying mess, the commander yells for the blonde kid, knowing it's the perfect time for the boy to shine. Afel takes off from the back like a rocket, ignoring everything around him with flawless leg drive, crossing the field in a flash. Using the wide backs of the cornered big guys, the blonde steps up, using the enemy's confusion as a literal ramp to get over the wall. Leaping into the air with sharp elegance, the boy flies right over the whole mess, dodging the unprepared barricade entirely. Dropping straight from the sky, the skilled kid cuts through the wind swinging his heavy wooden knife, ready to crush anyone caught in his landing zone. With a massive crack, an impact cloud covers the poor guys protecting the main target, sending them all flying and knocking them out cold from the heavy hit. The petty rich kid spots the total ruin from afar and curses his defenders, crying in frustration because he has no idea how he'll beat the 1st platoon with this garbage track record. A chill runs down the failed leader's spine as he finally realizes his humiliating run is over right in front of the instructors. Watching the tragic end of that mean little group, our MC calls the match from way across the field just as the evaluator crowns Afel the winner. Following the celebration, our hero admits Afel is seriously next level and is totally sure he's going to be a massive pain to take down. Watching his rival from a distance, the kid figures the real final boss of this tournament is definitely going to be the 3rd platoon. Hyped for the challenge, the ex-Centurion admits to himself he can't wait for the showdown and promises he'll see them in the finals. The break time gets cut short by the instructor's shout, ordering all the squads to rally back in the training arena. In the middle of the formation, Kyle reminds Damien that their next fight is against the 4th platoon, and guesses those guys will try to score at least 1 point since it's their last shot. Cracking his knuckles excitedly, the giant promises he's going to smash the face of the idiot who insulted his leader and asks the team to just clear the way for him. The kid agrees with the plan and notices from afar that the enemies look totally wiped out, and their teamwork is in shambles. Keeping his focus, the young guy decides he has absolutely zero intention of going easy on that little clique. The game plan is to crush the enemies even faster and more brutally, an idea that sits really well with his teammates who are out for blood. With his eyes glowing intensely, Damien orders his squad to stay locked in and finish this in the blink of an eye. The squad confirms the order instantly with grins on their faces, completely ready for a bloodbath. With the red flag raised high, the 1st platoon lines up in flawless formation on the dirt field. On the other side, the enemies hold the blue flag shaking with fear, looking like a totally disorganized mess. Staring down his prey, our MC just waits for the instructor to yell the official start of the match. Without wasting a single second, the squad charges full force at the rivals, kicking up a massive dust storm. The clash between the two front lines shakes the arena, sending dirt flying from the brutal impact of the wooden shields. Our hero scopes out the enemy stance and realizes their formation is so garbage it'll break from just that initial hit. But to guarantee maximum damage, he decides to crush the enemies so badly they never dare cross him again. Sticking to the plan, the leader calls for Kyle, who is already charging in, hyped up to do his thing. Using all his raw strength, the big guy bulldozes the rival defense line like an absolute monster. The impact sends the defenders flying through the air, screaming in terror, unable to process what kind of ridiculous power that was. Desperate as his defense crumbles, the arrogant rich kid curses his men and orders everyone to hold the line no matter what. Sweating bullets, he commands the shield bearers to protect the flag while the spearmen try to block the enemy charge. But a fast shadow streaks across the sky, dropping straight into the totally exposed backline. Landing right in front of the rival captain, Damien casually reminds him that he promised he'd remember his face. The enemy leader freezes in place, completely caught off guard by the kid's silent entrance. Without giving the enemy a second to think, the ex-centurion delivers a brutal smack with his spear straight to the blonde's face. Thanks to the heavy hit, the target drops to the dirt, groaning in pain and unable to stay on his feet. Boiling with rage over the humiliation, the guy glares up at the kid, muttering angrily that there's a limit to being underestimated. Gripping the handle of his weapon, our MC keeps an icy glare and asks if he looks like he's playing games right now. Confident in his hand-to-hand skills, the rival captain lunges forward with furious swings, thinking he can win an easy fight. The kid dodges the attack without breaking a sweat, realizing the opponent's moves are completely predictable. With an annoying level of chill, our hero keeps dodging the strikes and sarcastically asks if that's really all the guy's got. Blinded by anger, the blonde tries one last desperate thrust, aiming straight for the target's chest. With just a quick tap of his spear, Damien disarms his enemy and mocks him for dropping his weapon so pathetically. Taking advantage of the wide-open guard, the young guy lands a brutal kick to the rival's gut, sending him flying backward. Shooting him a deadly glare, the ex-soldier warns the fallen idiot that losing your gear in the middle of a battlefield is basically asking to die. Channeling a heavy aura of mana into his fist, the kid tells the opponent to remember that lesson if he wants to stay breathing in the future. The charged punch sinks into the defeated captain's chest with extreme violence, kicking up dust on impact. Staring at the knocked-out body on the ground, our MC mutters in disappointment that the win was way too easy to even be fun. The rest of the enemy squad freezes in terror after seeing their leader destroyed, forcing the evaluator to step in and stop the match. The superior raises his hand and officially declares that the fourth squad is in no condition to stay in the tournament. With that, the absolute victory of the first platoon is announced, as the kid hoists the captured blue flag in celebration. Letting out a loud, obnoxious laugh, Kyle cheers the insanely satisfying result and praises his leader's massive brain. From afar, the officers watch the medics carry off the loser and wonder how a 13-year-old kid could have that much skill. Blown away by the performance, the instructors admit the kid is a pure prodigy and might actually be better than them. One officer chuckles, agreeing with the praise, but quickly cuts the chat when he notices something very different happening in the yard. The duo turns their heads instantly, sensing a deeply intimidating presence walking right toward them. Wrapped in a monstrous red aura, the famous Leonhardt Belkane, the legendary training instructor of the kingdom's 3rd Division, steps up. Freaking out over the legend's surprise visit, the military guys quickly salute and shout, honoring the Empire. Ignoring the formalities, the one-eyed veteran calls for Sergeant Brian and asks if the kid on the field is the one he was talking about. The superior respectfully confirms it, pointing straight at the rookie squad celebrating their win. With an excited grin on his face, the seasoned warrior declares that they definitely found a very interesting recruit this time. Later in the dorm hallways, gossip takes over the base as the soldiers whisper about the insane news. One of the kids gossips that he heard rumors about a massive VIP arriving at their training center. The guy explains it's a famous instructor from the 3rd Division, and that even the camp bosses were shaking in their boots in front of him. Curious about the story, a buddy walks up to our hero trying to remember what the official's name was. Overhearing the chat by accident, the ex-centurion freezes completely, trying to remember if the guy's name was Lionheart. Processing the info, he mutters the name Leonhardt, totally mind-blown by the chance of running into that legend again. The second his buddy confirms that's the right name, the young guy turns around instantly and takes off running down the hall. Leaving his friends talking to themselves, the kid sprints through the dorms while his buddy asks where the heck he's going in such a rush. Completely confused, the recruit scratches his head, wondering what got into the leader to make him run off like a maniac out of nowhere. Our MC's heart is pounding with anxiety, needing to see with his own eyes if this big shot is who he thinks it is. Skidding on the wooden floor, the kid hits the brakes hard when he runs smack into the group of officers blocking the hallway. The one-eyed warrior stops walking and recognizes the kid instantly, pegging him as the hotshot rookie from the arena. Sergeant Brian flashes a bright smile and tells the kid they were actually just on their way to find him. Keeping his military bearing, the ex-soldier snaps a crisp salute and honors the kingdom with maximum respect. Walking up to the young guy, the veteran asks point-blank if his name is Damien, getting a quick nod of confirmation. The kid thinks about how the 3rd Division is connected to this boot camp, but never expected their paths to cross this early. Looking at that nostalgic face, the ex-centurion feels the weight of the years, recognizing the exact man who shaped his character the most in his past life. While the guy secretly worships the man as his lifelong master, Leonhardt admits he came to meet him because even the strict head instructor couldn't stop hyping him up. With his sharp eye, the giant officer quickly notices that the kid already has a pretty solid grip on mana training. Praising the flawless spear technique he saw earlier, the VIP asks if the rookie has decided which military unit he wants to join after camp. The question catches the kid off guard for a split second, but pure determination quickly fills his eyes at the golden opportunity. Flashing a huge, confident smile, Damien answers, without skipping a beat, that he plans to go straight into the legendary Neocalit's unit. Hearing this absolute insanity, the sergeant goes into shock and asks if the kid is serious. That's because the Neocalites is a brutal 3rd Division unit dedicated to hunting monsters, notoriously known for its massive casualty rates. The big one-eyed guy is puzzled by the dangerous choice, but Damien doubles down, saying he's going there exactly to get much stronger. Surprising everyone, the veteran offers to write him a recommendation letter for the knight's order. But the kid turns down the golden ticket on the spot, revealing that he needs to find a very specific person in that division. Taking the rejection like a champ, the legendary instructor just tells the rookie to head back to the dorms and get some rest. At that point, Brian tries to stop the kid in a panic, reminding him that night recommendations are almost impossible to score. The sergeant begs the veteran to let him try to talk some sense into the kid again, swearing it was just a bad call. However, the one-eyed man shuts it down, saying his subordinate simply missed the look in the kid's eyes. Letting out a booming laugh, the VIP finds it insanely interesting that such a unique kid is only 13 years old. He tells the sergeant to drop it, guaranteeing that he's definitely going to cross paths with the kid again in the division. The next day, the tournament finals hit with a heavy clash between the 1st and 3rd platoons on the dirt field. Remembering the massacre from yesterday, Damien tells his squad that there's no team alive that can stop them now. Buying into the hype instantly, the big bald guy smirks confidently and agrees they really are just too strong. Locking in a predatory glare, the ex-soldier gives the green light for them to go out there and crush their rivals with zero mercy. The match officially kicks off when the evaluator shouts across the field that the first attack goes to the opposing squad. Without wasting a second, the leader of the first squad screams, ordering his team to lock into their defensive formation. The enemy unit charges full speed, using that exact same focused, tanky tactical setup from their earlier fights. Mid-sprint, his partner tells the blonde genius that his role is going to be the absolute key to this attack. Stomping their boots hard into the gravel, the 3rd squad marches, shouting in unison to keep their tempo. The wooden walls smash together in the middle of the yard with extreme violence, cracking loud and kicking up a ton of dust. Throwing his weight in the back, our MC orders his soldiers to force their way through and push the enemy line back. The defenders on the rival team start grinding their teeth in pain from the monstrous pressure the rookies are dropping on them. Analyzing the solid blockade, the rival captain realizes it's the exact same insane pattern from the day before. Seeing how impossible it is to break the wall with raw power, he yells to unleash the team's secret weapon. In a flash, the enemy shield wall opens a corridor right down the middle, revealing the blonde kid holding his wooden weapon. The ex-centurion furrows his brow, totally confused why these guys would crack open their own defense like that. Using the gap his team made, Afel takes off at terrifying speed straight into the war zone. With a violent leap, the kid bashes the shields with a devastating strike, knocking the soldiers off balance and forcing them back. Our hero's eyes go wide, completely caught off guard seeing his team's structure get ripped apart. The enemy squad goes absolutely wild over the successful hit and screams for everyone to exploit the hole in the formation. But Kyle plants his feet in the dirt with his giant shield out front and swears he won't let them take another step. With a deafening crash, the brute throws his entire body weight, blasting the attacking line far away. Watching the play, the ex-centurion breathes a sigh of relief, thankful his buddy's toughness saved the squad at the last second. Staring at the mess, the kid admits it's crazy that a scrawny boy can wreck heavy defenders so easily. On the other side, the blonde kid freezes, staring at the human wall blocking the path, wondering where the heck that monster came from. Things get intense when the genius realizes the giant's furious glare is locked dead on him. A quick flashback shows the leader in their room instructing Kyle to never take his eyes off the blonde kid, no matter what. During that chat, the big guy was curious about the target, but was told he'd recognize him the second he laid eyes on him. Back in the arena, the heavy recruit flashes a terrifying, predatory grin, confirming he found his prey perfectly. Desperate, the enemy captain pressures him, asking if his partner can break the defense and gets a promise that he'll try. Scanning the mountain of muscle, the prodigy quickly figures out it's completely impossible to win a duel using just raw strength. With no other choice, the boy fires up his core and wraps his wooden weapon in a strong blue magical aura. Moving like lightning, he unloads a flurry of fast, mana-charged strikes against the brute's wood. But the giant holds his ground, dragging his feet through the dust, making his own team scream in awe at his insane endurance. Flashing a cocky smile, the blonde swears he'll keep hammering the blockade until the wood shatters into pieces. Tanking the hail of blows, the giant sweats cold, totally shocked that a kid hits just as hard as his boss. Spotting an opening, Afel jumps high and throws all his weight into a vertical strike that makes the brute shake in his boots. Without giving him a second to breathe, the blonde pulls his spear back and screams that this is the end of the line for their defense. Seeing the real danger, Kyle grits his teeth and tucks his whole body behind the shield, bracing for the devastating crash. But at the very last millisecond, Damien appears out of nowhere, sliding across the gravel with his spear overflowing with purple magic. The two magic weapons clash in a pure energy explosion, blasting a shockwave of wind across the camp. With his red eyes glowing, the ex-soldier completely blocks the rival's hit, proving this power struggle is a dead tie. The blonde kid's big blue eyes go wide from the shock of the perfect parry, and he mutters his opponent's name in awe. Just then, a piercing whistle rings out across the training arena, cutting right through the insane tension. The two warriors immediately shut down their mana and pull back their weapons, turning their heads to hear the instructor's call. The sergeant calls time, announcing that the third platoon failed to grab the flag and lost their attacking round. Frustrated by his lack of speed, the genius slumps his shoulders, grumbling in annoyance at the giant shield's absurd endurance. Backing away from the clash, our hero asks if his buddy is okay and hears him confirm it while catching his breath. Coughing up dust, the brute brushes off the concern, saying his bones are intact, and tells his leader to sit the next one out. Damien shoots the idea down, reminding him they still have 2 full weeks of training left, and a bad injury could ruin his career. The leader decides it's better for the big guy to stay in the back and guard the flag, making Kyle smile when he realizes the boss is looking out for him. Gripping the wooden pole at the Allied base, the bruised soldier swears nobody's touching it and tells the team to go wreck everything. Right in the middle of the field, the head instructor raises his arms, ordering the teams to swap sides for the final round. Knowing full well his squad is running on empty, the kid huddles everyone up and declares they aren't going to drag this out to the time limit. Narrowing his eyes with a deadly aura, the young guy states with absolute certainty that this fight will be over in 5 minutes flat. The ex-centurion grips his spear, feeling the weight of the moment, and shifts his stance, getting ready for the sprint. The whistle blows and the first platoon takes off furiously, charging like a landslide across the camp's gravel. Leading the mad dash, our MC promises to snatch the flag under the time limit to seal the win. The camera focuses on the two massive units colliding once again in a pure test of survival and brutal willpower. Dodging wooden spears in the chaos, the kid thinks happily that boot camp is finally wrapping up. The young guy knows perfectly well he gave it everything he had teaching these clueless rookies and turning them into real soldiers. But now that the squad can hold its own, his personal mission is making sure the top brass never forgets his face. Flashing a wicked, cocky smile, the warrior swears that everyone in this kingdom is going to have the name Damien burned into their brains. Staring down the enemy line from afar, he figures that crushing the squad of a genius like Afel will officially crown him the best recruit. Reading the play from a distance, Afel guesses his rival is playing defense since he burned a lot of energy and leading the charge would be tough. With the enemy leader hanging in the back guarding the blue flag, a head-to-head clash becomes completely unavoidable. The evaluator screams the official call, green-lighting the first team's attack and the third team's defense, kicking off the grand finale. Taking charge of the offense, Damien tells everyone to lock in and hit top speed right out of the gate. Watching the brutal sprint, One of the defenders panics when he sees the rookie's formation hasn't broken at all despite moving that fast. Terrified of the first platoon's power, the enemy captain yells for his men to raise their shields and watch out for their leader. Sprinting across the dirt, our hero calmly thinks to himself that all their worrying isn't going to change a thing. Pumping magic into his gear, he winds up a heavy strike, swearing to himself he'll bust through that barricade in a single hit. With an aggressive leap, the ex-centurion comes crashing down, smashing his purple aura weapon right into the front line. The violent impact splinters the wooden defense, making a recruit scream in terror as his shield gets pierced. Jumping on the massive opening, the kid lands and starts throwing strikes, knocking enemies down like it's nothing. With the wall shattered, he yells out that the opening they needed is finally here. Panic sweeps through the enemy backline, with guys screaming for someone to try and stop the monstrous charge. Not missing a beat, the young leader sprints through the gap, knowing he needs to take them down right this second. Laser focused on the goal, the warrior's eyes glow brightly as he hunts for the main target in the middle of the mess. Dishing out strikes with crazy agility, our MC steamrolls the recruits trying desperately to block his path. He uses his unreal speed to slip right through the confused defenders, dodging every attempt to box him in. Soldiers drop to the dirt groaning in pain, with some complaining they totally busted their ankles from the hit. Leaving the downed rivals in his dust, Damien yells for his squad to rally up immediately. Guarding the rear with his shield, the big guy is shocked by his buddy's insane speed and asks if he really already made it that far. Watching the flawless push, the enemy captain freezes, wondering how the kid closed the gap so fast, and admits he's the biggest threat on the board. Keeping his cool, the blonde reads the board and realizes all they have to do is stall that monster to keep the flag safe. Ready to move, Afel steps up, telling his team to watch the flag because he's going to shut down the attack himself. The rival leader sighs in frustration at his own incompetence, thinking it's pathetic he has to rely on a kid in a crisis. The two prodigies finally square off on the dirty field, making the ex-centurion realize this is the ultimate final boss fight. Staring down his rival's awesome blue aura, the warrior remembers the glorious future of the guy who would eventually become a general. With a sudden lunge, the blonde boy attacks, spear in hand, letting out a quick battle cry. Watching every move, Damien decides this is the perfect chance to test his own skills against a guy of that caliber. With lightning reflexes, our hero dodges the strike, quickly figuring out that first move was just a fake-out. Catching on to the opponent's strategy, the kid's face lights up with excitement as he plots his counterattack. Launching a fierce combo, the blonde unleashes a real highly dangerous attack that forces his opponent to take the fight seriously. The wooden pole slices the air, glowing with insane energy, proving just how much real power the kid is hiding. With surgical precision, the ex-soldier parries the strike by crossing his own weapon, leaving his opponent totally shocked. Taking advantage of his rival's surprise, Damien uses the force of the hit to shove him away and create some space in the arena. Firing up his own core, our MC wraps his spear in pure purple magic and tells his buddy not to hold back. With an epic leap, the warrior promises he's also going to go all out to crush that defense. With extreme violence, the ex-centurion unloads a direct hit right at the blonde kid's position. On pure survival instinct, the genius raises his weapon, trying to block the devastating blow coming from above. The clash makes the blonde shake in his boots, realizing that monstrous pressure is strong enough to shatter his guard. Sliding across the gravel to try and absorb the hit, Afel wonders if this kid is really a commoner or if he's hiding the same secret he is. Completely mind-blown by the whole thing, the blonde kid can't fathom how someone his age can master mana so perfectly. Staring at his rival's terrifying aura, the prodigy regrets running into such a scary roadblock in a basic boot camp. Walking slowly and steadily through the dust, Damien announces in a dark tone that it's time to end playtime. Pumping even more energy into the tip of his gear, our hero warns that this time blocking is going to be completely impossible. Without giving him a chance to react, the kid drives the devastating blow home so fast there's no escape. Thanks to the destructive impact, the blonde's body is sent flying and crashes hard into the dirty yard. Groaning in pain from the heavy hit, the kid can't get up right away and tries to catch his breath. With zero resistance left in his way, the ex-centurion sprints at top speed straight toward the test's main goal. Crawling in the dust, the defeated genius curses under his breath when he sees the flag is left wide open. The blue cloth waves all by itself on the field, signaling the unavoidable end of the third unit's hard work. Hoisting the captured flag high, our MC hears the evaluator shout, declaring the absolute victory of the first squad while the crowd goes wild. Sprawled in the dirt, the blonde prodigy watches the celebration with the frustrated look of someone who gave it their all and still came up short. Stepping away from the party, Damien walks slowly over to his beaten rival and offers a hand in a friendly gesture of pure respect. Praising the match, the winner says thanks for the tough fight and the blonde says congrats back, swearing he won't lose next time. Adding a bit of trash talk, the kid suggests they team up in the future, since he highly doubts he can beat this monster again. The rich kid tells him to drop the fake modesty, while the warrior thinks to himself that this beatdown might just create an even deadlier rival. Turning back to his hyped-up squad, the ex-soldier decides to just soak in the glory with his buddies for now. Wrapping up the event, the head instructor confirms the results and demands they keep the same hustle for the last 2 weeks of training. Watching from afar, Leonhardt flashes a proud look and agrees the kids deserve a minute to celebrate. Getting tossed in the air by his ecstatic squad, the kid finally relaxes and lets his teammates enjoy their massive win. In the fancy mess hall, the soldiers are absolutely floored by the insane feast set up just for them. The rookies drool over plates piled high with chicken and steak, celebrating that all the pain from the tournament was totally worth it. Chewing casually, Damien watches the guys go crazy and figures that eating real meat cures any boot camp fatigue. During a quiet moment, the warrior feels a bit bummed that his old master took off before they could talk a bit more. Right then, Sergeant Brian walks up to the table asking if he can grab a seat, which the kid instantly agrees to with total respect. Getting serious, the veteran asks if the rookie is really going to pass up the golden recommendation from the legendary Leonhardt. The young guy stands his ground, making the superior nod slowly while regretting the waste of such a rare shot. Trying to lighten the mood, the officer lets out a weak laugh and drops a cryptic comment, asking if the kid heard the latest news. The man reveals the one-eyed VIP also offered a fella spot in the same night's order and asks if he can guess the answer. Showing zero surprise, our MC says he respects his partner's call, since it's his life to live after all. That ridiculously mature answer cracks the instructor up, joking that the first squad's leader is one boring kid. The officer admits he came over to try and change the kid's mind again, but realizes there's no point arguing with someone that stubborn. Raising his glass in the middle of the hall, Brian gets the whole squad's attention, praising their insane hustle over the last 2 weeks. Turning back to Damien, the veteran wishes him the best out there, but kills the vibe by warning that tomorrow's training is going to be even more brutal. Hyped up on victory and good food, every guy in the team raises their glass, toasting to the glory of the kingdom. Time flies at camp, and the third and final week of military training finally kicks off for the recruits. Out on the dirt yard, the soldiers drill their spear techniques hardcore, while the higher-ups push for more power and speed. Watching the drills, Damien is happy to see that everyone's form has improved drastically. The ex-Centurion figures the boot camp was a huge success, and the squad tournament was the perfect push they needed. Right after, the instructor's loud shout rings across the yard, calling a quick 5-minute breather for the whole battalion. Completely out of breath, Big Kyle walks up to the leader asking if he heard the latest gossip, leaving his buddy confused. Cutting the break short, the instructor stands by the armory and asks if everyone has picked out their one prize item yet. Aphel opens his hand to show off a silver seal, explaining he grabbed it because he sensed some holy energy coming from it. Our MC nods, backing up his partner's gut feeling, and explains the item has the power to ward off bad luck. Checking out the gear, the officer praises the blonde's solid spear and points out a shield forged by a famous blacksmith. But when it's Damien's turn, the veteran stares the kid down and asks if he's absolutely sure about his pick. The man warns that the ring he chose only drops your body weight a tiny bit, which makes the kid curious. Thinking the rookie grabbed it by mistake, the instructor suggests he put the artifact on and test it out. Taking a step back, the kid does a quick jump and is amazed to feel that he'll be way faster in a real fight. The officer asks if he's happy with it and gets an instant yes, since the result was way better than he expected. Laser-focused on his new loot, the ex-Centurion figures the jewelry grants invisibility and weight reduction, making it a high-tier artifact for sure. Not wasting time, the sergeant orders the whole squad back to the dorms to wrap up their unit registrations. Inside the office, his blonde buddy reminds the leader that he needs to fill out his own draft paperwork too. Pen in hand, the young guy writes down his plan to join the dreaded Neo-Calit's military unit. Watching this, the officer sighs, thinking it's a massive waste, convinced the kid's talent would shine in the knight's order. The ex-soldier hands the finished form to the sergeant, who just takes the paper and nods. The instructor says he trusts the kid's skills, but tells him to watch his back since it's an insanely dangerous place. Praising his hard work over the last month, the veteran clears the guy to leave as soon as the official notice drops in a few days. With that, the heavy wooden office door closes, wrapping up the chat between the two warriors. Walking down the empty hall, our hero thinks about the bittersweet feeling of finally moving on, until he hears his name shouted. The young guy turns his head and catches a fell rushing toward him, saying he just heard the gossip from the instructor. Frustrated, the blonde demands to know why a guy with his skills would turn down the knight's order, but his buddy just says he doesn't belong there. The genius looks down for a second before admitting he took the great Leonhark's recommendation to become a knight. Patting his buddy on the shoulder, the ex-centurion says it was a really smart move and that he's going to crush it over there. Aphel lets out an ironic laugh, finding it hilarious that his friend is hyping up the same chance he just threw in the trash. Worried about his partner's future, the future knight reminds him the squad he picked is a literal slaughterhouse and tells him to stay safe. The two prodigies shake hands firmly, while the blonde kid promises they're definitely going to cross paths again someday. Oozing confidence, the kid just says thanks for the real support from his old boot camp rival. Turning his back and walking down the hall, our MC wonders if the blonde has any clue about the epic future waiting for him. With a sharp smile, he imagines his partner might turn into an even bigger monster, and admits he can't wait to see it happen. The ex-soldier straightens his uniform and shifts gears, deciding it's time to say one last goodbye to his old crew. Walking into the dorms, the leader finds his entire squad gathered up for one last hurrah at the military camp. Catching feelings, Kyle yells his buddy's name and runs desperately toward him. The giant crushes his friend in a massive bear hug, whining that the team thought he was going to bail without saying bye to anyone. With tears in his eyes, the brute says goodbyes are mandatory in a world where tomorrow is never guaranteed. Straightening up, the bald soldier yells for the whole platoon to listen up for the commander's final words. Looking at his men, our MC flashes a smile and gives them props for all the hard work they put in. The squad cheers, throwing their fists in the air, thanking him for the lessons and wishing him the best of luck on his next missions. With his backpack secured, the kid finally walks out the training center gates and heads straight for the kingdom's capital. Arriving downtown, the guy takes a chill walk down the cobblestone streets until he hears a voice calling his name. He looks around a bit confused, trying to figure out who would be looking for him in this exact spot. To his surprise, young Dial walks up with a smile, mentioning it's been a minute since they last saw each other. Flashing some reports in front of the massive corporate building, the girl says she's got all the investment details ready to go. Once they're cozy in the office, the blonde explains they're looking at a 3% return on the business's net revenue. Reading over the papers, the young guy is genuinely blown away by how flawless and transparent the Merchant Guild's financials are. The girl asks if he has any questions about the deal, but the kid promises the paperwork is too perfect to argue with. Our MC gives the green light to move forward, and the employee announces the insurance money is on its way to the room. The heiress suggests drawing up a detailed contract, but gets thrown off when her business partner waves off the paperwork. With creepy levels of chill, the kid argues that contracts are only for people who don't trust each other at all. The blonde stares at the kid in silence for a second, openly admitting he's a very bizarre guy. Cutting in, the employee drops a heavy chest on the desk, saying the promised cash is all there. The second the lid pops open, Dial's eyes go wide, completely shook by what's shining inside. Stuttering, she points out they agreed on 300 coins, but the chest clearly holds over 500 pure gold coins. Keeping his relaxed vibe, the ex-centurion explains the extra cash is just a little bonus for her stellar work. The girl panics, wanting to rewrite the contract immediately to add the new amount, but the guy calmly shuts it down. The kid thinks to himself that she had every right to underestimate him because of his age, but chose to act like a total pro instead. Switching gears, the merchant mentions his recent boot camp graduation and asks where he's being stationed next. Not beating around the bush, Damien says he's heading west to join the Neo-Calit's troops near the dreaded forest. The heiress jumps out of her chair in shock, totally outraged that the best recruit in the kingdom chose to go to a dump like that. Flashing a cynical smile, our hero jokes that if he ends up biting the dust out there, all that fortune goes straight to her guild. But the blonde's face drops instantly, scolding the guy and demanding he never make a messed up joke like that again. Taking the scolding, the ex-soldier is surprised that behind her sweet look is a woman with serious attitude. Getting back to business, the young lady asks for his exact departure date, and hears he's hitting the road in exactly 3 days. Grabbing her bag in a hurry, she says goodbye and promises to put all that invested money to incredibly good use. Once the door shuts, the kid breathes a sigh of relief for getting the money stuff sorted out without a hitch. Stretching his arms, he decides to pig out on the best food in the city before heading off to that miserable forest. Keeping his word, the warrior spends his nights going crazy in the taverns, chugging giant mugs and eating piles of roast meat. The feast carries on into the day, with the kid munching on huge skewers while strolling casually through the capital's streets. After stuffing his face, he crashes hard on his rented bed, falling into a deep, well-earned sleep after weeks of tension. When the time is up, our MC throws his backpack on and checks his map to start the long trek down the dirt roads. Double-checking his gear, the young guy makes sure he packed everything he needs for the risky trip into the middle of nowhere. But his peace and quiet is wrecked when he turns his head and absolutely cannot believe what he's seeing. Busting out a loud laugh, the giant Kyle pops out of the bushes, reminding him he promised they'd see each other soon. The kid mutters his buddy's name, still in disbelief, guessing the crazy stunt this giant just pulled on purpose. The big guy holds out his hand for a fist bump, asking if the boss really thought their team-up was ending at boot camp. Throwing his heavy arm around his buddy's shoulder, Kyle reveals he enlisted in the exact same unit, bragging that they're going to rule the place together. Getting back on the road through the thick woods, the giant asks his buddy if they should get moving already. But suddenly his partner grabs the kid by the shoulder, telling him to hold up a sec, leaving the leader totally confused. Out of nowhere, young Dial shows up completely out of breath, sighing in relief that she made it just in time. The ex-centurion is puzzled by the surprise visit and asks what the guild heiress is doing out in the sticks. Being super helpful, the blonde says she hooked them up with a luxury carriage since she knew their base was in the middle of nowhere. Pointing at the ride, she says she packed it with non-perishable snacks and a bunch of useful gear for the long haul. The kid asks why she's going out of her way to help, and the merchant says she's just paying back the trust he showed her. Explaining her company's motto, she promises she spent the last few days getting all this together so she wouldn't owe him any favors. Watching the chat, the big guy praises the girl's cool move, while the leader tells her to have a safe trip back home. Joking around, Dial claims this is just another investment since the guy himself told her to invest heavily in the future. Letting out a genuine laugh, our MC realizes the girl is a terrible liar, but admits to himself that she's pretty interesting. Wrapping up the talk, the young soldier says goodbye, saying they'll bump into each other again, which she happily confirms. Wasting no more time, the kid hops into the fancy carriage, ready to tackle the rest of the long ride. The carriage takes off down the dirt road while the blonde heiress waves from afar, saying bye to the two warriors. The trip moves fast, crossing the dry plains straight toward the dreaded Monster Division base. Bouncing around in the cab, the big guy curses the bumpy road, complaining about the crappy ride, but his buddy reminds him walking would have been a total nightmare. Pulling up to the massive wooden gates, Kyle recognizes Urkel's defenses, but the kid thinks it's super weird that all the locals are missing. Chilling in his seat, the leader guesses the townsfolk are either hiding from monsters or out working in the local forest. The reality is that most of the civilians around there make a living picking a super valuable medicinal herb deep in the dangerous woods. This specific plant gives you a wicked fever if eaten raw, but when cooked right, it turns into an insanely strong painkiller. Since pretty much the kingdom's entire stash comes from here, the locals literally can't stop working, even with monsters attacking. The second they step out of the ride, the big buddy tells the kid to hustle so they can get to the military base ASAP. The rookie duo walks slowly through the empty, creepy streets of a place that feels exactly like a ghost town. Feeling the heavy vibe in the air, the brute gulps and calls out to the ex-centurion, terrified of what's waiting for them. Pointing at a dark, spooky building at the end of the block, the recruit asks if that creepy dump is really their barracks. While his buddy doubts anyone could actually live in a place falling apart like that, our MC catches a strong scent of crimson in the air. The ex-soldier goes on high alert and warns his partner that people are moving fast toward the gate. Just then, the massive iron doors of the fortress start creaking open, echoing loudly through the empty street. A squad of completely battered warriors walks out of the yard, dragging their unconscious and badly wounded buddies. The stained armor on one of the fighters shows off the official crest of the feared Neo-Calit's extermination unit. The squad of veterans walks right past the newbies, dragging their feet and groaning from their heavy injuries. Thick fog rolls over the base entrance, while the rest of the beaten squad keeps filtering out of that slaughterhouse. Totally shell-shocked by the depressing scene, the giant mutters that those guys look more like walking ghosts. Keeping his usual ice-cold cool, the kid tells his partner to get used to it, because out here they're going to fight for their lives every single day. Watching the misery of the other squad, our MC gets hit with a very specific flashback from his past life. Back then, his own captain gathered the battalion to ask what the most important duty of any soldier was. The young grunts gave naive answers, talking about following orders or sacrificing themselves to take down a bunch of enemies with them. The commander listened to that garbage in total silence, looking incredibly disappointed by the squad's blind hype. With zero patience, the veteran punched the soldier who suggested dying in battle right in the head, making the guy furious. The officer backed up the hit by declaring that was the worst possible mindset, revealing the only right answer was to survive. With a harsh tone, the master demanded that no one treat their own life like trash, ordering everyone to come back in one piece no matter what. He wrapped up his rant by reminding them that the only way to avoid the Reaper is to get stronger and stronger while fighting. Snapping back to the present, the ex-centurion feels bad that he can still see his old buddies' faces clearly, even though they all perished in the end. Breaking the ice at the gate, the kid tells the big guy to walk in with him right now, leaving his partner shaking with nerves. The young leader reminds him firmly that they came to this hellhole specifically to get stronger, and they can't waste another second. Checking out the chaotic inside of the base, the big guy whispers that the vibe in there is awful and begs to wait a minute. Completely ignoring his buddy's scared advice, our hero turns his back and walks straight into the main courtyard without hesitation. Seeing the leader walk right into danger, the giant groans in annoyance and chases after him, telling him to slow down. Suddenly, a fighter kicks open the lobby doors, knocking over chairs and cursing out the city's defense forces. Foaming at the mouth, the guy screams that Intel lied about the number of monsters, saying they even had to fight an orc mage. Two other recruits yell in a panic that the sergeant's arm is practically hanging off, and he'll get discharged if he isn't treated soon. The messed up reality is that the members of this division are convicted prisoners, meaning medical discharge just doesn't exist. These doomed guys only have two choices: rot in a cell or bleed out running suicide missions every single day. Furious at his buddy's situation, the warrior kicks the furniture, asking how a mutilated soldier is supposed to survive on the streets. Cutting through the mess, Captain Terran takes charge, demanding they call a medic and beg a priest for help. One of the female soldiers points out sadly that the religious guys charge insane prices, and their paycheck doesn't cover that kind of luxury. Breaking the gloomy mood, a veteran tosses his own coin pouch on the wooden table and rallies the team to pitch in. The hothead soldier reminds him that money was for his boss's mom's surgery, but the captain swears she's already doing way better. Inspired by the leader's solid move, another wounded fighter walks up to the table and tosses his own savings into the gold pile. In seconds, a crazy sense of brotherhood takes over the room, and a bunch of guys give up the little they have to save their buddy's arm. Right then, a super young, beat-up recruit tries to put his coins on the table, but gets chewed out big time by the veteran. The older warrior tells the kid to save that chump change for some new boots, instead of trying to play the hero. Hanging his head in guilt, the boy begs to help, saying the superior only took that hit to protect him. Tearing up a bit, the man praises the kid's good heart, while the captain orders an immediate search for the healer at the temple. While waiting for the team to move out, the battalion leader looks over at the young kid and asks how old he's turning. Yahello answers confidently that he just turned 18, and the boss ruffles his hair, reminding him it's already been a year since he enlisted. The captain sighs, hoping the wounded soldier holds on, but the chat is cut off by a loud shout coming from the door. The same female warrior from before shows up in a rush, announcing that the fresh batch of recruits they were waiting for just rolled into the base. Hearing the news, the hothead soldier's eyes practically light up at the thought of fresh meat helping out with the team's missions. Totally caught off guard, Terran rubs his chin, admitting the day's bloodbath made him completely forget about the new transfers. Slipping back into commander mode, the boss calls out the youngest recruit by name, who jumps to attention ready for orders. Throwing an arm around the bruised kid's neck, the veteran leads the way to the main hall so they can handle this business fast. Flashing a kind smile on his dirt-streaked face, the leader tells the kid it's time he got to meet his new underlings up close. Walking into the fancy, carpeted office, the captain stares down the newcomers, asking if they are the guys, which they confirm. Checking out the giant's impressive build, the veteran happily concludes that this dude is going to be incredibly useful. The captain then looks closely at the kid, with a bit of hesitation in his eyes. He immediately asks if the rookie really is just 13 years old, which the kid casually confirms. Assessing the situation, the boss realizes the kid is 5 years younger than Yahello and can't fathom why he de-enlist here. Glancing at the paperwork, the veteran mutters that he really doesn't get how kids these days think. Right then, a subordinate cuts into the reading, pointing out that this kid was the top recruit of his entire boot camp. But the commander flashes a dark smile, warning that means absolutely nothing, since things are completely different out here. Our MC replies that he already knows that, surprising the boss that the kid showed up fully aware of the danger. Wasting no time, the captain calls for recruit Yahello, who answers the superior's call instantly. Pointing his finger, the officer tells the young guy to take the newbies to their bunks and put them to work cleaning everything. Following orders, the older soldier tells the duo to follow him through the base. The three walk in silence down the military fort's wooden hallways. Breaking the ice, Yahello explains there are no formal ranks here. The captain is the big boss, followed by the vice captain. He makes it clear that under the brass, the pecking order is strictly based on who got to the unit first. Arriving at the dorms, the guide tells them to pick any bed, but drops a dark warning that they won't be theirs for long. Confused by the creepy heads-up, Kyle frowns and demands to know what the heck that means. Staring the duo down, Yahello says he's been there a year and is still the newest guy, asking if they get the picture. Before the big guy can finish snapping back a sarcastic reply, he takes a fast, heavy hit. Unable to block, Kyle drops to his knees on the floor, groaning in pain from the surprise attack. With a furious, threatening glare, the veteran demands absolute respect and finishes his thought. The vibe gets super tense when the young guy reveals that literally everyone who showed up after him ended up biting the dust. The rookie duo goes dead silent, just soaking in the weight of that incredibly dark reality check. Turning his back, the guide tells them to unpack and scrub the room first, promising to explain the rest later. The second the door shuts, the two buddies are left alone in the middle of the filthy room. The giant complains, totally outraged about what kind of jerk drops a bombshell like that right in someone's face. Annoyed by the whole thing, Kyle asks why his leader is doing that little smirk again. Reading the room calmly, our hero secretly realizes the core vibe of this place hasn't changed one bit. Cutting the chatter, Damien tells his partner to just start cleaning, leaving his buddy completely stunned. Grabbing a dirty rag, the kid argues that if they have to do the chore, they might as well do it right. With a sharp grin, the kid treats this dumb task like it's their very first official mission on the base. Totally disgusted, the brute waves the rag around, yelling that he doesn't look anything like a maid who leaves things spotless. Far away in the base's canteen, Yahello sits all alone looking super tired and lost in thought. Squeezing his eyes shut, the young soldier admits to himself that he's scared out of his mind. He remembers how awful it is seeing new guys join the team and accidentally making friends with them. Memories of veterans trying to shield the rookies in battle come flooding back to haunt him. Reliving the trauma, he recalls being promised it was an easy mission and that he just needed to stay in the back. But harsh reality proved that just 1 second of slipping up was enough to cost everyone their lives. The young guy thinks about how this extermination division is exactly that kind of hellish slaughterhouse. Opening his dead eyes, he admits he just stopped looking out for the newbies, since they were all going to perish anyway. Still, this new duo is really bothering him, mainly because he's super curious about that mysterious kid. His thoughts are cut off when an officer calls out, telling the kid his boot repair is finally done. The youngest veteran grabs his gear from the counter and thanks the guy for the quick turnaround. Making small talk, the man asks if those idiots at the front gate earlier were the highly anticipated recruits. He mutters that the guys looked so useless he thought they were from the defense force, feeling bad for the new subordinates. Not wanting to drag out the chat, Yahello says goodbye, promising to come back another time. Out in the yard, the guy flashes a mean smile, ready to head back to the room and mercilessly crush the rookie's spirits. Walking back, the soldier figures that confidence and pride are just feelings that get you killed super fast in a place like this. Pushing the door open quietly, he peeks into the room, hoping his targets haven't finished the cleaning job yet. But the veteran's eyes go wide, completely shocked by the insane scene he walks in on. Polishing the furniture, our MC notices the superior's arrival and greets him like it's the most normal thing in the world. The entire room is literally shining, and the kid calls the older guy over, waiting for him to grade their work. The other fighters crowd around the door in disbelief, with the captain asking how badly he tortured the new kids. Sweating cold, the young guy stutters in a panic, trying to explain he didn't do a single thing to pressure the duo. Holding a bucket, Damien announces they followed orders and asks the superior to check if they missed a spot. Checking out the surreal shine on the furniture, Yahello remembers everyone usually just fakes cleaning, having no clue how they pulled this off. Shaking with nerves, the guide assumes this has to be some kind of big-brain, defiant challenge against his authority. Breaking the thick tension, the base commander just bursts into a loud, genuine laugh. The boss praises their incredible hustle, joking that it looks like they just got a brand new dorm. The soldiers watch the scene in shock, whispering about how crazy it is to see the emotionless captain laughing like that. Getting back to business, the camp leader orders the rookie duo to step up right now. Looking the two dead in the eye, the man asks if they really cleaned the whole place by themselves, which they proudly confirm. The commander squints and asks why they bothered scrubbing everything when they could have just faked it. Keeping his military respect, the kid explains it was a direct order from the veteran and they had a duty to get it done. Reading their body language, the boss figures his years of experience let him look right into a soldier's soul. Glancing at the big guy, he easily deduces the brute would be ready for real combat with barely any training. But when he focuses on the kid, the officer gets frustrated because he can't figure out why the kingdom's biggest prodigy came here to suffer. Certain there's a deep mystery hiding there, the captain demands the whole squad listen up closely. All the fighters in the hallway snap to attention, waiting for the leader's official announcement. Throwing his arms around the duo's necks, the veteran happily declares that, starting today, these two are the division's new baby brothers. The squad mates swap excited looks, feeling like they've finally been welcomed into the family. Later that night with the lights out, Kyle breaks the silence, asking if this endless war is ever going to stop. Lying in the dark, our hero answers coldly that the conflict only ends if they just throw in the towel. The big guy gets dead serious and begs his partner not to even think about dying before he does. Finding the drama hilarious, the ex-soldier jokes and asks if his buddy ate some bad food at dinner. The young guy secretly admits he didn't answer the request back then, but in a way he actually kept that promise. The bloody memory from his past life hits him again, showing the day he fought totally alone to the bitter end on a battlefield. Reliving the nightmare, the young soldier's face turns completely ice-cold as war memories hijack his brain. Back then, he was the only one who made it out of that bloodbath alive, outlasting the dirtbag who threw them into that hell in the first place. The kid wakes up with a jump in the middle of the night and curses under his breath, super annoyed that his dark past is haunting him again. Since his sleep is ruined anyway, our MC decides to get up and grind his mana cultivation method so he doesn't totally waste the night. The ex-centurion takes a chill walk toward the dark forest, looking for a secluded spot to focus on his skills. Suddenly, the kid hears a weird noise and stops in his tracks, curious to see who else is training at this ungodly hour. Hiding behind the trees, he spots veteran Yahello swinging a heavy sword back and forth. Watching the scene, the recruit remembers that this guy was always an absolute fanatic when it came to training in his old life. But the kid thinks it's super weird he chose a heavy weapon, noticing that kind of sword totally ruins the veteran's biggest advantage, which is speed. Knowing how stubborn the guy is, the kid figures he'd probably get swung at if he offered advice right now, though he knows he'd dodge every hit. So Damien decides not to risk the good vibe he just built with the squad, preferring to wait for the perfect time to bring it up. When the sun comes up, the whole squad gathers near the Rocky Mountains, already complaining that today is going to be full of pain and sweat. Bored waiting for the captain, two veterans suggest a bet to see if the newbies will actually survive to the end of training. Without wasting time, the silver coins start flying, with the guys betting big that the rookies will pass out before the morning is even over. Listening to the trash talk up close, Big Kyle gets furious at the squad's disrespect, while the leader calculates just how much they're being underestimated. Watching the mess, our MC realizes the officers aren't even trying to stop the betting, proving how totally disorganized this division's vibe is. Without a second thought, the kid walks right up to the gambling ring, leaving his giant partner wondering what the heck he's up to. Popping out of nowhere, the ex-soldier asks if he can get in on the action, claiming it looks like a lot of fun. The veterans jump at the surprise appearance of their bet's target, but quickly laugh it off and ask if the rookie actually has any cash to play. Confirming he's got the money, the recruit smoothly announces he'd like to tweak the rules of this little pool just a bit. Flipping a gold coin in the air, the kid bets he's going to outtrain everyone on the base and take first place, tossing the prize on the table. The bold move makes the older soldiers burst out laughing, mocking his insane confidence and asking if he wants to add anything else. Loving the kid's guts, the warriors take the bet and promise to hand over all the cash if he actually pulls off a miracle and wins. On the flip side, the men warn that if he loses, he'll be doing everyone's laundry for a whole month, daring the rookie to back out. Jumping on the high stakes, The kid asks if he can throw one more personal condition into this crazy deal. Our hero demands free time during the daily drills for an entire month if he wins, leaving the squad totally stunned by the request. Right then, the base commander pops up out of nowhere, green-lighting the condition and locking the deal, completely shocking his men. The captain turns his head and shouts Dianel's name, who snaps to attention ready for the boss's order. Stirring the pot, the boss tells the young veteran he has to get in on the bet and compete directly against the rookie. Caught off guard, the soldier gulps and asks why, only to get roasted by the captain about being scared of losing to the baby of the group. Standing tall, Dianel swears he isn't scared, he just thinks tossing money at an obvious outcome is a total waste. Playing along, the division leader tosses a few coins to his subordinate and says he's covering his buy-in. The veteran stares down the mystery kid, promising to honor the free time deal if the kid actually manages to beat the older guys. Dropping the jokes, the man switches to a threatening tone, warning that the losers are going to suffer hellish training and demanding maximum effort. Feeling the heat from the threat, the fighters shoot death glares at the kid, promising to crush the rookie's cockiness during the drill. Stretching his arms out, the ex-centurion realizes everything went exactly to plan, since his goal here goes way beyond just getting a break. The kid knows he has to fix the rotten vibe in this unit at all costs, because trying to survive with zero hope totally wrecks a warrior's soul. Slicing through the tension, the camp commander yells that today's physical training session officially starts right now. Pointing at a massive pile of wood, he reveals the drill is sprinting to the top of the rocky mountain while carrying those giant logs. Annoyed by the task, the veterans complain that this punishment should only be for the newbies, not the whole squad. Losing his temper, the boss screams for everyone to shut up and grab a log right now, ordering them to start the march without any whining. Minutes later, the whole battalion is hiking up the mountain, suffering under the insane weight of the wood while the sun beats down on them. Gasping for air and sweating bullets, the base members realize this trail is an absolute nightmare that completely drains their leg strength. Fighting to stay balanced, one of the warriors wonders why the heck the captain decided to drop such a weird punishment out of nowhere. Right behind him, his buddy grumbles that it's obviously the new recruit's fault, swearing the kids are going to pass out before the halfway mark. Looking around for the target of their bet, the soldier thinks it's super weird he can't spot the cocky rookie struggling with the rest of the normal guys. Looking up, the man's eyes go wide in shock, refusing to believe what's going down near the top of the cliff. Miles ahead of everyone else, our MC is jumping across the rocks with ridiculous speed, leaving the squad totally dumbfounded by his monstrous agility. Not looking tired at all, the kid lets out a calm breath, feeling like the heavy load on his back barely makes a difference. Staring at his own hand, the boy realizes with amazement that his magic ring also massively cuts down the weight of anything he carries. Thrilled with how this turned out, the ex-centurion pats himself on the back for his intuition, knowing he picked the absolute perfect artifact at camp. Without dropping his pace, he keeps climbing the rocks super easily, curious to see how far behind he left the veterans. Judging the distance, the kid notices the entire group is still crawling at the bottom of the hill, with only one guy even trying to keep up. Young Dianel grits his teeth, laser-focused on catching the rookie, proving he's the only one capable of not getting totally left in the dust on this hellish climb. Hitting the mountain peak without breaking a sweat, the recruit tosses his heavy log aside and takes a deep breath, just taking in the view from the top. A few seconds later, the veteran arrives at the finish line gasping for air, pretty much coughing up a lung from running so hard. Impressed by his opponent's grit, our hero secretly gives the guy props for his stamina, since he expected way less from a guy who's only been here a year. Leaning on his log planted in the dirt, the boy claims his undisputed first-place victory like an absolute boss. Totally gassed, the older fighter stares at the kid in silence, still struggling to accept he lost the race that badly. Down below, the captain watches his best guy lose and secretly admits he just scored a massively valuable piece for his division. When the rest of the team finally drags themselves to the top, the fort commander calls the end of the morning run. Honoring their deal, the boss yells that every single guy who lost to the kid is going to pay up with hellish training immediately. Before the soldiers can even start suffering, a subordinate cuts off the leader's yelling, getting his attention in a totally panicked tone. Shaking with fear, the fighters point down toward the division's camp, begging the officer to look at what's going down below. When he turns his head, the veteran's tough look turns into pure shock as he instantly realizes how serious the signal on the tower is. A massive red flag is waving wildly on top of the base, telling the entire kingdom that a level 1 emergency just popped off. Without wasting a second, the whole squad drops the training and runs desperately back to the gates of the stone city. Hustling through the fort's halls, the captain demands to know why the alarm tripped, finding out there were multiple casualties in the local forest. Busting into the control room, he asks who got hit, and is told it was just civilians picking medicinal herbs in the restricted zone. The leader curses the people for being dumb enough to trespass in a danger zone, immediately asking how big the threat is and what kind of monsters are involved. The officer reports they still don't have details on the creature, but warns the situation is awful because the victims had 6 armed mercenaries protecting them. Focused on handling the crisis, the commander asks his right-hand man how many healthy guys are ready to march out to fight. The officer counts 70, but the boss says to leave anyone with even minor injuries behind, demanding they only take 50 guys. Alone in the room, the veteran gulps, expecting the worst. He thinks about how the attacks are getting closer and suspects the forest is undergoing a mutation. Minutes later, the extermination squad is already waiting in perfect formation in the main yard, shouting in unison that they're ready to spill blood in the woods. Hyping up the base, the captain roars, ordering the whole squad to grab their weapons right now. Just then, young Damien and his partner walk up to the leader, saying they want in on the mission too. Without hesitation, the commander shoots them down, stating that a real battle is way different from practice, and telling the rookies to stay in the dorm. Annoyed, Kyle argues they've got plenty of strength, and suggests they could at least act as porters at the back of the squad. The officer closes his eyes, regretting the situation, finding it super embarrassing that his team is in such bad shape they have to beg rookies for help. Turning around, he finally caves and lets them tag along, but strictly orders them to stay completely out of the fight and only carry the extra gear. Taking charge, the leader calls veteran Dianel over and tells him to hand the junk to the newbies, which he does right away. Handing over the heavy backpack, the soldier brings up the Bronzerian forest, guessing that's exactly what the boss was talking about earlier. The boy remembers his buddy's dark warning about a literal demon hiding out in those exact same woods. Running the facts, our MC realizes the warning wasn't a joke, and that they definitely aren't dealing with your average monster. In his memory, the veteran stares at a steel wolf carcass, admitting he'd never believe it if he hadn't seen an orc fighting like a demon and killing the beast himself. With his fists clenched in pure rage, he reveals the squad had to bail out, pointing out it usually takes 5 normal orcs to fight a beast like that. Consumed by anger, the older fighter thinks to himself, swearing that the old division never would have been wiped out if it wasn't for that freaking monster. Tired of the confusion, the kid adjusts the bag on his back and sighs, feeling like all the info is a jumbled mess in his head. Already marching with the rest of the platoon through the wasteland, the kid figures his only option is to see the threat with his own eyes, even if he's just a lowly porter. Standing in front of the battalion, the captain shouts, asking if everyone's gear is packed tight, getting a quick "yes, sir." Walking with serious swagger, the veteran warns that on field ops, they always have to prep for every worst-case scenario and avoid any dumb risks. Using a dead serious tone, the commander makes it crystal clear that the absolute top priority for every single guy here is making it home alive. With the order to move out finally given, the squad starts the long march, while our hero feels relieved to finally be seeing some action. Feeling good about it, the young soldier silently hypes himself up for his first real, genuine battle. Arriving at the edge of the dense forest, the boss orders a perimeter search in teams of 3, strictly demanding that nobody leaves his line of sight. The military leader tells the rookie duo to stick close to him and not fall behind no matter what, an order they instantly follow. Checking out the area, the kid notes the place just looks like regular woods and doesn't get why it's such a heavily restricted zone. Suddenly, a cold chill shoots through the boy's body, making him feel the exact same heavy, oppressive vibe of an active war zone. Staring into the dark brush, the ex-centurion remembers the 5 years he spent fighting where life and death constantly cross paths, feeling all his senses scream red alert. Gripping his staff tight, the recruit is absolutely positive that this territory is insanely dangerous. Shattering the quiet of the woods, a loud yell of shock grabs the entire group's attention. The captain rushes toward the sound, anxiously asking if the search team finally found the missing people. Up ahead, one of the fighters waves desperately, calling the officer over to see what they just stumbled upon in the brush. The scene they walk into is an absolute bloodbath, with mangled bodies scattered all over the dirt. Checking out the tragedy, the officer thinks it's weird their weapons are still there, guessing the victims ran away in pure panic. Staring at giant claw marks gouged into a tree, the leader wonders what kind of freak creature could do that kind of damage. One soldier guesses it might be some kind of monster bear, but the boss shoots it down, saying no local beast has that much power. Grasping for answers, the subordinate wonders if it could be an ogre, but the commander still thinks it's a stretch. Right then, our MC spots a hidden detail in the bushes and quietly steps closer. The kid finds the massive body of a beast dumped in the brush, asking out loud if that's the carcass of a red bear. Checking the animal's wounds, the kid backs up the team's first theory, pointing out that the attacker's front paws must have been ridiculously huge. Pointing at the shredded tree trunk, the recruit confidently states this is the only logical explanation for all this bloody mess. Blown away by the flawless logic, the captain praises the perfect breakdown and asks where the kid learned to read tracks so well. Lying smoothly, the boy makes up that his dad was a pro hunter, and the veteran nods, saying he had an awesome teacher. Caught totally off guard, the big guy is super confused, remembering his partner previously said his dad was a military man. Quickly turning his head, the young guy tells his buddy to shut up so he doesn't blow his cover in front of the commander. Shifting focus, the officer decides the squad is going to pull out for today and orders them to respectfully bag the bodies to send back to their families. Our hero agrees internally, figuring that charging in blind would be total suicide since they still have no clue what they're up against. Watching the superior's rock-solid stance, the kid admits he's an amazing commander and totally gets why the squad respects him so much. Taking the lead on the retreat, the boss orders the group to hustle out of the forest as fast as they can. Suddenly, the kid's instincts flare up, and he snaps his head around, completely freaked out by a noise coming from above. The young soldier's eyes go wide when he sees a massive shadow dropping from the sky, and he screams for everyone to take cover from the sneak attack. A colossal rock crashes violently into the middle of their formation, triggering a dirt explosion that sends warriors flying. Sprawled on the ground, one of the soldiers screams in agony, holding his crushed leg, having no idea where a boulder that big came from. In the middle of the dust cloud, our MC panics and sprints toward the crash site while screaming his best buddy's name. Showing off freakish strength, Giant Kyle is holding up the massive rock with his bare hands, grinding his teeth so he doesn't let his ally get flattened. Without second guessing, Damien throws himself against the heavy stone and pushes alongside his partner to help lift the insane weight. Combining their strength, the rookie duo manages to lift the rock just inches off the ground, opening a tiny window for rescue. Acting fast, the captain roars for the rest of the team to drag the trapped fighter out of that hole right now. The second the victim is clear, the brute drops the heavy rock and collapses in the dirt, panting heavily from the superhuman effort. The injured guy is dragged away in critical condition, while the leader kneels next to him offering a weird-looking plant. The veteran hands him the herb and tells him to chew it hard to get the juice out, saying it'll help kill the intense pain. He explains the plant works like a strong painkiller, but it's got a nasty toxin that needs to be neutralized so it doesn't kill the patient. In a flash, the kid pops up holding a handful of different seeds, promising the mix will cut the poison and telling him to chew it all up fast. Seeing the recruit's deep medical knowledge, the commander gets suspicious, wondering how a kid would know something so niche. But our MC cuts the boss's thoughts short, urgently warning that the boulder didn't just fall on its own and the thrower is extremely close. The veteran's eyes go wide as he realizes the immediate danger, while heavy footsteps make the ground shake, terrifying the kid. A colossal beast with glowing red eyes comes roaring out of the dark woods, throwing the warriors into a panic as they wonder what the heck it is. One of the soldiers gulps in absolute shock, admitting he's never seen a monster that massive and can't figure out how a black bear got that huge. Drawing his blade furiously, the captain screams at the top of his lungs, ordering the whole squad to gear up for the fight of their lives. Answering the call, the fighters pull out their swords and axes, quickly locking into a defensive formation against the predator. The demonic bear lets out an ear-splitting roar that echoes through the entire forest and charges head-on at the armed platoon. The creature takes a massive swipe at the air with its giant paw, while the leader yells desperately for everyone to dodge the lethal hit. Taking control of the chaos, the boss orders the wounded dragged to the rear and tells the group to surround the monster and focus all their cuts on its legs. With blood in his eyes, Warrior Helson leads the charge holding a heavy axe and calls dibs on the first strike. Letting out a war cry, the man bravely leaps at the beast, bringing the massive blade down with all his might. On impact, the axe hits the bear's tough hide, spraying a bit of crimson, but the weapon gets stuck instantly without doing any real damage. The soldier jumps back in pure shock, realizing his strongest attack, which could normally chop an orc's thigh off, barely scratched the monster's thick skin. Using the opening, the beast raises its claw to counterattack, forcing the commander to scream his ally's name, begging him to snap out of it. Without losing momentum, the monstrous beast counters Helson's strike, throwing a brutal slap with its giant paw. Hitting with insane violence, the warrior takes it straight to the face and gets tossed away like a ragdoll. Completely defenseless, the soldier goes flying through the air, dropping his heavy axe along the way. Crashing hard into the dirt, Helson groans in pain while the demonic bear charges forward, absolutely furious. Striking a terrifying pose, the monster raises its bloody paw to deliver another crushing blow. The beast swings its arm down with crazy violence, kicking up a storm of dust and rocks everywhere. In the middle of the mess, the captain blocks the attack, clashing his sword against the claw and cursing the freaking monster. Feeling the heat from the beast's power, the leader realizes he's already got 3 guys down, and decides this thing isn't leaving here alive. With a loud shout, the veteran orders the rest of the squad to close the circle and hit it with everything they have. Instantly, the fighters swarm the bear, stabbing with spears and swords, yelling to pierce the beast's thick hide. Worried about the backline, one of the soldiers shoves the rookies away, telling them to fall back immediately. Looking for a gap, the commander yells Dianel's name, who's already dodging the windup and getting ready to strike. Catching the perfect moment, the young veteran brings his blade down, slicing the colossal beast's leg. Stung by the cut, the bear lets out a piercing, deafening roar that rings across the entire battlefield. Seeing the perfect opening, the captain jumps in, tearing up the monster's other arm with a quick, clean slash. With his blade glowing in a bright aura, the commander locks eyes with the enemy and announces that it's game over. Watching the scene from afar, Damien's eyes go wide, surprised to see the veteran using mana on his weapon. Pulling off an epic jump, the squad leader raises his glowing sword, screaming for the bear to just die already. With zero mercy, he brings the charged blade down in a brutal slash that rips the giant monster right down the middle. The beast drops dead, while a warrior celebrates the team win by cursing out the dead animal. Calming down, the military leader checks out the carcass looking confused, admitting he has no clue where a freak like that came from. Touching the thick hide, the veteran finds some really abnormal dark spots on the animal's skin. Behind him, a subordinate asks if it's contagious, mentioning that some diseases leave marks like that. Right then, the recruit quietly walks up to the body and confirms those are exactly the spots he was thinking of. Inspecting the carcass, the kid figures to himself there's only one reason a mutant bear that big would show up here. Locked in on the mystery, the boy tells the team they need to find out where this thing actually came from. Taking back control, the captain tells Aaron to keep watch and orders Brent to skin the bear to make armor. Ruining the vibe, Damien warns that they won't be able to use that skin, leaving the soldier completely stunned by his nerve. The commander turns his head and stares the rookie down in dead silence, just processing the new kid's blatant interruption. Seeing how sure the kid is, the boss states that he clearly knows something important, getting a quick nod back. Changing his mind on the spot, the veteran tells the squad to drop the hide and head back to base, ordering the newbie to come with him. The battalion marches back through the dark woods, with the leader demanding the kid stick right by his side. Once back at the fort, the two walk into his private office, where the officer points at a chair and tells the boy to sit. Cutting to the chase, the captain crosses his arms and asks if the recruit knows what those black spots were. Chilling in the wooden chair, Damien answers super casually that the bear looked like it was poisoned by magi. The man's eyes go wide in shock, asking if he's talking about that exact same dark magic used by dark mages. Tense about the news, the boss guesses a mage has invaded the forest, remembering that kind of stuff is strictly outlawed in the kingdom. Trying to cool things down, the boy explains nothing is confirmed yet, it could be a sorcerer or just some magical glitch. The power behind that spell comes from worshipping demons, and anyone exposed to that twisted energy ends up dying a really miserable death. Lost in thought, the young guy remembers that in the future this forest held a corrupted stone, and starts getting suspicious about the timeline. In his head, this cursed stone wasn't supposed to be discovered by the world, until way after a massive disaster hit the Empire. Putting the pieces together, the kid realizes with a scare that this might be the exact starting point of the whole tragedy. Over time, the dark magic is going to rot more beasts and get stronger, but if they smash it right at the start, the disaster might just be stopped. Breaking the silence, the officer asks curiously how the recruit knows so many hidden details, and the kid lies again, saying he learned it from his dad. The military leader smiles, clearly interested, sitting up straight and saying he'd love to hear that family story in much more detail. Sticking to his lie, the boy dodges the conversation, pointing out they're in a spot where they need to chase down any lead they can get. The next morning, the sun lights up the military base, while the kid wakes up complaining that his whole body is sore. With absolutely zero patience, Kyle yanks the blanket off his buddy, yelling at him to get his butt out of bed already. Suddenly, a fighter kicks the dorm door open, shouting that he's got some massive news to drop. The soldier announces the forest is on complete lockdown, and even the herb gatherers are banned from going into the woods. The team cheers over the surprise day off, stoked to spend the next few days just training safely inside the base. Finding the leader's lack of hype weird, his partner asks what's wrong, but the kid plays it off, saying he thinks it's great. Facepalming, Damien complains to himself that the lockdown happened at literally the worst possible time for his master plan. The chill morning vibe is broken by the heavy sound of boots marching across the camp's stone courtyard. The rookies peek out the window looking confused, wondering why a preppy Defense Force squad is hanging around their slaughterhouse. Up in the captain's office, a priest wearing fancy robes is sitting comfortably in the guest chair. The military commander sits across from the suit and gets straight to the point, asking why religion is paying a visit to this dump. The guest explains the temple decided to step in after reading the report, since the mages confirmed the bear was dripping with evil aura. Hearing the confirmation, the veteran gulps, realizing the rookie's crazy theory was 100% spot on. The priest says nothing is set in stone yet, but reveals they have orders to send an official cleric to lead a joint search through the woods. Being blunt, the priest demands they bring the soldier who spotted the magic on the mission, since they're walking into unknown territory. The captain tries to cover for the kid, arguing he's just a rookie, but the cleric shoots back that he's the one who found the vital clues. The leader looks down, stuck in a really tough spot, knowing that telling the church no would mean massive punishment for the whole division. Without much choice, the veteran sighs in defeat and calls for his trusted officer, who answers the command instantly. Making the tough call, the commander orders them to bring Damien into the room, while the kid lets out a heavy sigh, feeling like he's about to get dragged right into the mess.